My name's Angie Sanders. I'm the General Counsel for the State Board of Education. Pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated Section 844-108B3, I submit this determination of necessity for the State Board of Education's meeting held via WebEx at 9 a.m. on July 24, 2020. PCA Section 491301 requires the State Board to meet at least quarterly. Pursuant to Section 844-108 and the Governor's executive orders declaring a state of emergency in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the State Board has determined that its regularly scheduled quarterly meeting on July 24th should be conducted electronically to ensure the Board can carry out essential business in a safe, transparent way that avoids creating large gatherings of people. This meeting will include consideration of a number of revisions to the State Board's rules and policies, as well as consideration of district waivers pursuant to the Board's authority established in Public Chapter 652. Notice of this meeting was posted on the State Board's website, along with the agenda and instructions for the public to access the WebEx via computer or telephone. With that, Madam Chair, I'll pass it back over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders. I'm going to provide our usual reminders, and all votes will be roll call vote. Board members providing the motion and the second, please state your name for the record. Again, members wishing to speak, please address me as chairman to be recognized and given the floor. I will acknowledge you before you begin, and that's predominantly to avoid talking over one another. Additionally, to avoid background noise, we do ask that you put your device on mute unless you are speaking or we are recording votes. For each of our presenters, we ask that you state your name for the record as well as your title. Now let's move into the approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent items?
This is Mike Edwards. I'll move.
Mr. Edwards provides the motion. Is there a second?
Ms. Gordon Ferguson, second.
Mr. Ferguson provides a second. Mr. Griffin, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins. Mr. Cobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Arnell.
Aye.
Mr. Eby.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson.
Aye.
Mr. Jensen.
Aye.
Ms. Kim.
Aye.
Mr. Morrow.
Aye.
Madam Chairman.
Aye.
Madam Chairman, you have 9 ayes.
The ayes have it and the motion is approved. Moving into item 2, report items. A, graduation requirements. Mr. C. Flail. I do want to remind everyone that there is no action on our part, but we certainly can ask questions and have discussion. Mr. Flail.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Steve Playle for the Tennessee Department of Education, serves Senior Director of College and Career Experiences. This report item discusses graduation requirement substitutions or substitution courses. The report item lists all of the approved courses that could substitute for fourth-year math, lab science, and English 3 or 4, economics, fine arts, PE, U.S. government, and wellness graduation requirements. This will allow students greater flexibility in taking courses that may be more aligned to their career interests. So for this year, we reviewed all of the current technical education courses in addition to other general elective courses and other academic courses that could potentially be substituted here. And we added several CTE courses that have strong academic content that could also meet these graduation requirements. So for example, in the BioSTEM courses, there is a tremendous amount of lab science work in those standards, and those courses in the BioSTEM program of study were added to the be able to be substituted for lab science credit. So with that, I know we are very busy today, so I will keep it brief and open it up for any questions.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Eby?
Yes, just a couple of comments. I think most of the board knows that I chair the Graduation Requirements Committee for the Board of Education and also sit on the Tennessee Math Alignment Group representing the State Board. And now Amy Owen also sits on that math alignment group, and we continue to look at other courses that can provide that fourth year math requirement, that senior requirement, as well as looking to see if you had your 4 credits, do you have to take math in all 4 years of your high school? So I would expect that this year that we will be able to get back and work with the Department of Education. We also have members of TOS, Tennessee Higher Education Commission, and the TSBA on that committee. So we're continuing to look to see how we can be flexible and meet requirements that have the math content that's needed. Thank you.
Thank you for adding that information, Mr. Eby. It's incredibly important work. We have continually heard from the field how important it would be to provide these types of substitutions. So thank you both so much, especially Steve, for your being here with us today and sharing that information with the board. Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much. We're going to move on to action items on first reading. The first item is A, State Board of Education Mission Statement Policy. Ms. Amy Owen.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. Amy Owen, Director of Policy and Research for the State Board. I'm very excited to share several items with you throughout the morning regarding the State Board's 5-year strategic goals and annual master plan, both of which are up for approval at this meeting. As we talked about yesterday at the workshop, the State Board engaged in a comprehensive strategic planning process over the last approximately 8 months. As part of that, we identified a need to update our mission statement to align with the board's focus on both our specific role in setting policies and requirements for schools across the state, as well as our goal of maintaining a focus on students and what student outcomes are. So because of that, we have a proposed revision to the mission statement, and I'll briefly read it. It's only one sentence. The mission of the Tennessee State Board of Education is to ensure policies and systems are in place so that all students are prepared for success after graduation. This is on first reading, so I'm happy to take any suggestions you may have for improvement, but I've been very excited to engage in this work with our board members.
Are there any questions, comments, or revisions requested? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve item 3A?
Madam Chair, this is Bob Eby. I so move.
Mr. Eby provides the motion. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, Nate Morrow, second.
Mr. Morrow provides the second. Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Aye.
Mr. Cobbins,
Aye.
Mr. Darnell,
Aye.
Mr. Eby, Mr. Eby,
Aye.
Mr. Edwards,
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson,
Aye.
Mr. Jensen,
Aye.
Ms. Kim,
Aye.
Mr. Morrow,
Aye.
Ms. Hargrove.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 9 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you. Moving on to item 3B, Educator Licensure Rule. Ms. Brittany Kendrick.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. I am Brittany Kendrick, Assistant General Counsel for the State Board. I am presenting changes to the board rules on educator licensure, discipline, and temporary permits, both of which are before you today on first reading. First, the license discipline rule is being brought for revision to comply with statutory changes from the most recent legislative session. Nathan discussed those yesterday, and so we are bringing some of those proposed changes in the license discipline rule today. Specifically, these changes include updating the section on automatic revocations and the ability to request that costs be assessed to the educator where a license action is ordered as a result of a contested case proceeding before an administrative law judge. Additionally, the license discipline rule and the temporary permits rule is being brought to address reporting for individuals teaching on a permit and the review process for reports received on educators teaching on a permit. The changes were made in compliance and have been made in compliance and pursuant to the Tennessee State Code statutes on temporary permits. We also have a rulemaking hearing tentatively scheduled for September 4th, 2020 to garner stakeholder feedback on these proposed changes to be held before final reading. But I'm happy to take any questions that you all may have at this time.
Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, this is Gordon Ferguson. I move for approval.
Mr. Ferguson provides the motion. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, this is Mike Edwards. I'm second.
Mr. Edwards provides the second. Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins,
Aye.
Mr. Darnell,
Aye.
Mr. Avey,
Aye.
Mr. Edwards,
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson,
Aye.
Mr. Jensen,
Aye.
Ms. Kim,
Aye.
Mr. Morrow.
Aye.
Madam Chairman?
Aye.
Madam Chairman, you have 9 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 3C, technical revisions to Tennessee Social Studies Standards. Ms. Catherine Johnson.
Hello, I'm Catherine Johnson. I'm the policy coordinator with the State Board of Education. As you know, the state of Tennessee has a very extensive revision process. And the social studies standards, which were approved on final reading in 2017, were implemented for the first time in the 2019-2020 school year. As with all previous revisions, we want to ensure that the standards are as clear and implementable as possible for our educators. So over the course of the year, we collected feedback from current educators as well as conducted our own internal review of any standards that may be causing confusion in the wording of the standard. We proposed a few standards for minor technical revisions to clarify the language. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions, comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve item 3C?
Madam Chair, this is Bob Eby. I so move.
Mr. Eby provides the motion. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, this is Nick Darnell. I second.
Mr. Darnell provides the second. Last chance for discussion. Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins,
Aye.
Mr. Darnell,
Aye.
Mr. Avey,
Aye.
Mr. Edwards,
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson,
Aye.
Mr. Jensen,
Aye.
Ms. Kim,
Aye.
Mr. Morrow.
Aye.
Madam Chairman?
Aye.
Madam Chairman, you have 9 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you, Catherine. Moving on to item 3D, standards. Mr. Steve Playle.
Hi, good morning again, Madam Chairman. Steve Playle, Senior Director of College and Career Experiences for the Tennessee Department of Education. This item is to revise and add, on first reading, revise and add new CTE courses and course standards for advanced manufacturing, agriculture, food and natural resources, business management and administration, information technology, and law, public safety, corrections, and security career clusters. There are 32 courses that are either being added or standards are being revised in these career clusters at the secondary level. These courses and new courses and revised standards were reviewed by our industry advisory councils and with our secondary and post-secondary partners, and we recommend approval on first reading.
Are there questions or comments?
Madam Chair, Bob Eby.
Yes, Mr. Eby.
Yeah, Steve, how do we go about deciding whether to add a course or not? Do we do a survey of the districts, what the needs are, or what people are interested in, particularly in the CTE is what I'm talking about?
Yeah, great question, Mr. Eby. We do a very comprehensive review annually of our career clusters that we have here in Tennessee. We offer 16 different broad career or industry sectors, career clusters. Those are reviewed annually with our industry advisory councils. We have members of the public and industry business partners, post-secondary partners on those advisory councils for each career cluster, and those are reviewed annually to determine any sort of revisions there. We also take into account all of the labor market data, the trending jobs, unemployment, occupation rates, all of that data that we also include to determine any new potential emerging careers or occupations here in Tennessee. All of that data, all of that information is compiled by our program managers at the department, and then they make recommendations to either add courses, revise standards, which is then again reviewed by the industry council, advisory council, and our post-secondary and our secondary partners.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just to clarify, when you said program managers, I want to make sure that I heard you correctly. Is that with the Economic Development Group or internally with education?
No, Madam Chair, that is internally at the department. That is a team. We have a team of 6 individuals who oversee those 16 career clusters and support those different career areas.
I thought so. So is there a point in time that the team at the department, TDOE, interfaces with economic development because of the work that they're doing, the clusters that they're going after, the trends that they're seeing with existing industry? I'm just curious about the connection to those folks.
Absolutely. And yes, we have a great partnership with the Department of Economic and Community Development, also the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, Tennessee Higher Education Commission, and TBR. So all of those partners, state agency partners, are deeply involved in the revision process and the approval process of any sort of revised standards or courses.
I was pretty certain that they were, but I wanted to make sure that I asked the question and then it was clear to everyone else who is listening about it, so that I understand the process and that you are not doing this in a vacuum. So thank you for that. I do have a question for you. It appears that there's some information missing in item under law, public safety, corrections, and security career cluster, criminal justice 1. On page 2 of both the red line and the clean version, it's number 3. It looks like there's 2 digits of a date that are missing, or a year, I should say a year. Starts out with evaluate reasons why the juvenile system separated from the adult legal system in 19, but the last 2 digits are omitted, both in the red line and the clean version. So if that's just an oversight or there's intention to confirm the date and then insert it, I would recommend that you check it out just to make sure before it's in final approval.
Absolutely, and thank you for catching that for us, Madam Chairman. That is absolutely an oversight and a typo that we will correct. I'm sure the board is aware of this, but after items are approved on first reading, they go for public comment, and then they are also revised before second reading. So we will make sure to revise that piece there and correct that typo prior to final reading.
Excellent. Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Larry Jensen. I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Jensen.
How do you make the geographic decisions about where the courses are applied? From, Mountain City to Memphis, that's a broad, and it seems and you don't have to have an answer to this now. I would like to know some more about that, how those decisions are made to distribute the coursework across the state, because the needs obviously are different in that broad of geography. So again, you may want to answer some of that now, but that is a question I have. Absolutely, Mr. Jensen. Our statewide approved courses and programs of study are just that. They are statewide, so any district from Mountain City to Memphis could utilize the courses that we offer. We do actually require, under the Perkins legislation for CTE, every district to conduct a comprehensive local needs assessment, where they do a really in-depth review of what occupations are in their community and in their regional area, what emerging occupations are available,
And then we work with them, provide a lot of technical assistance to align the programs of study and course offerings to meet those needs, the career pathways that would lead a student into those career fields. So there's a lot of back and forth with districts and conversations with districts on that comprehensive local needs assessment to ensure that what they are offering at the local level is appropriate. We do not mandate any sort of CTE offerings must, for example, in Mountain City, they must offer advanced manufacturing. We do not mandate that. That is a local decision that we would obviously provide technical assistance and work with to ensure that they are providing those appropriate opportunities for students, but we do not mandate course offerings. Happy to follow up with you offline as well, Mr. Jensen, if you would like to discuss that further or have additional conversation there.
Madam Chair, this is Mike Edwards.
Yes, Mr. Edwards.
Steve, I think I should know this because I think at one time I did know this. As you're doing annual reviews, are you reviewing the skills that a graduate of that course should have? Does it require performance assessments, and do industry opine on those skills, those performance assessments, and the content of the curriculum?
Yes, sir, Mr. Edwards. The industry advisory councils do provide a lot of input on what those skills should be, and what that a student who completes that course or goes through that program of study, what they should be able to do at the end of that, the culmination of their program of study or that course, what they should have mastered, those skills. We do not have a statewide assessment program for our CTE courses. However, we do utilize a tremendous amount of the industry certifications those industry credentials, post-secondary credentials that students would be able to access. Our courses are, for the most part, all of our programs are, but for the most part, most of our courses are also aligned to those industry certifications, and it would prepare those students to attempt those certifications and hopefully be successful in attaining those industry certifications. So there is some of that, but we do not have a statewide assessment.
I really wasn't looking for a statewide formal assessment, although it would be more at the end of a course, a performance assessment. You're getting ready to break down a motor. Do they have to demonstrate they can break down this motor?
Absolutely. So the way the standards are established is set for competency-based instruction, that they should be able to demonstrate mastery of those skills. Yes.
Great.
Other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve item 3D?
This is Mike Edwards, Madam Chair. I move.
Mr. Edwards provides the motion. Is there a second?
Ms. Gordon Ferguson, second.
Mr. Ferguson provides a second. Any other discussion? Mr. Griffin, please call the roll.
Mr. Cobbin.
Aye.
Mr. Darnell.
Aye.
Mr. Eby.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson.
Aye.
Mr. Jensen.
Aye.
Ms. Kemp.
Aye.
Mr. Monroe.
Aye.
Chairman Hargrove.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 9 ayes.
The ayes have it and the motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Item 3E, Career and Technical Education Rule. Steve, you're up again.
Yes, Madam Chairman. Again, Steve Plale, Senior Director of College and Career Experiences for the Tennessee Department of Education. This proposed change to the CTE rule is in regard to updating language and requirements to be in line with the Perkins 5 legislation. The board will remember back to earlier this year, pre-COVID pandemic and closures, the department submitted the 4-year Strengthening Career and Technical Education in Tennessee state plan for the Carl D. Perkins Act, the 5th iteration of that, which is Perkins 5. This rule and revision would update language to be more consistent with the Perkins 5 federal legislation and state code.
Are there any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, Bob Eby.
Mr. Eby?
Yeah, I just wanted to hope that the letter that we sent went along and helped in the process.
Absolutely. Thank you to the board for your letter and your comments. I appreciate very much your support. Yes, the plan was approved. We were able to submit on time in April. In spite of the COVID closures and the pandemic, we were able to submit on time. Very thankful, and we'll say publicly thank you to the U.S. Department of Education for allowing some flexibility with this, but we were able to submit on time as a state, and that was approved in June for the 4-year state plan. So we're moving forward, and I appreciate the board's support.
Thank you for that, Steve. Any other questions or comments? Appreciate your great work. With hearing no other questions or comments, is there a motion to approve item 3E?
Madam Chair, this is Nick Darnell. So moved.
Mr. Darnell provides the motion. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, Nate Morrow, second.
Mr. Morrow provides the second. Any other comments or discussion? Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins. Mr. Darnell.
Aye.
Mr. Eby.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson.
Aye.
Mr. Jensen. Mr. Jensen. Ms. Kim.
Aye.
Mr. Morrow.
Aye.
Madam Chairman Hargrove.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 8 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to 3F, Professional Assessment Policy, Mr. Michael Dorline.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. The next 3 items deal in part with a recommendation to add a new 610 math endorsement and a few pathways to achieve that endorsement. This is in response to some challenges that we've heard from LEAs facing in filling secondary math vacancies. As you all also know, pass rates on the secondary math praxis have been extraordinarily low. And so we wanted to create a pathway to allow educators to teach middle grades and early secondary mathematics while maintaining rigor of preparation program and assessment requirements. So the professional assessments policy recommendation focuses specifically on the assessment that would be required for the 610 math endorsement, which would be the National Evaluation Series assessment that the board has already adopted for the 6-8 mathematics endorsement. And early on, it was noted that that assessment does cover early secondary content. So it is very much appropriate for this endorsement. And the cut score is set at the exact same cut score that is required for the 6-8 endorsement. In addition, there is a recommendation based on State Board staff research conducted, demonstrating that EPPs are making strides in supporting candidates on performance in the EdTPA. However, we would all benefit from pushing back the cut score for 1 additional year and maintaining the current cut score, moving to the nationally recommended score 1 year later. Happy to take any questions if you have them.
Are there any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, Bob Eby.
Mr. Eby?
Yeah, Michael, by delaying this 1 year for the cut scores for the EdTPA, it says that EPPs would be doing what kind of activities would they be doing that would enhance, give us a reason to delay it 1 year?
I think there are a few things that they can do. So one, I know that early on when the board first adopted the EdTPA, there were some kind of late adopters. And those folks have since learned quite a bit from those early adopters, because as you know, we had 8 providers that were doing EdTPA many, many years prior to the board requiring it. So one thing that we've tried to do, and we utilize our TACTI network, the Tennessee Association of Colleges of Teacher Education, is really connect those EPPs. So make sure that EPPs are sharing best practices and supporting candidates through the EdTPA, really refining the seminars that they offer to prepare candidates for EdTPA. So those are the sorts of things that come to my mind that they can do to support candidates in this additional year.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Edwards?
Yes. Michael, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Fine, thanks. So first, let me say I've been one of the ones who whined about math cut scores and particularly endorsements. And I think that this proposal is great. I think you all have done a great job and partially, I think, in major solving a hard problem to solve. So what you're asking us to do with freezing the cut scores for a year, does this proposal automatically revert it back to the current, to the cut scores we had set it at, or does it require us to vote again to reset them back up?
Good question. It would not require you to vote again. The recommendation is to just hold the cut score as is today and was for between January 1st, 2020 and December 31st, 2020. So the way that we've crafted this recommendation is that between January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2021, we would maintain the cut score as is, and then beginning January 1st, 2021, we would advance to the 42 for the majority of the assessments.
It would automatically flip back without any further action by the board.
Correct. That's the way I understand it, yes.
Well, I think I would like to amend it if for some reason it's determined that is not the case. How many teachers that you fear is going to be short by making this more rigorous? How many do you think that out of those that we will pick back up? In other words, what's going to be the upside by lowering back down the cut score?
So I don't have numbers in front of me to say exactly how many teachers have met that cut score.
Not exactly, but are we looking at 10% or 50% or, is this a significant number worth doing?
So one thing, or a couple of things I'd say from State Board staff's research on this. One is that we've seen over the course of the last few years, we have seen a pretty significant increase in the average cut score for most EPPs. And so in seeing that, I think it's just promising to note that virtually all EPPs are pushing their candidates in the right direction to do better on this assessment. The other thing I'd say, and this goes back to some research that Spencer Gwosdijk did a few years back, the outcomes that are shown by candidates who get a 40 versus a 42 as far as how effective they are in the classroom are virtually indistinguishable. So once you get up into that 40 range and 42 range, candidates are likely to be more effective in the classroom.
Okay.
The other thing, too, that I want to add is that we did have this discussion in the Education Preparation and Licensure Subcommittee. And Michael, I think you provided us with a lot of rich data and details that backed the decision to delay the increase in the cut score. So, and Mike, I don't know, I believe you were there, but I don't remember exactly. And I know we've had many months in between and a lot of other things happening. But at the time we had that information presented to us, we, as a subcommittee, were in agreement that it was the right decision. Ms. Owen, do you want to jump in and reflect or add to the discussion?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. You are correct that we discussed this at the April 30th Licensure and Prep Subcommittee based on research from our State Board Senior Research Associate, Erica Light. I'm happy to provide those materials for the full board after this meeting. Erica did provide that kind of breakdown of how many teachers would have been licensed if the cut score were higher or lower at various points in time. So that can give you the information you're looking for, Mike, but we did find it significant enough looking at couple hundred folks, which when we know we have a teaching shortage is something that we want to address. So let me follow up after the board meeting with you all.
But Amy, what you just told me is great.
Great.
Thank you. And Michael, well done on this policy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I believe we may have lost one of our board members due to a power outage. Bob, are you with us? No, we've lost him. So we'll move on. Is there a motion to approve item 3F?
Madam Chair, this is Mike Edwards. I move.
Mr. Edwards provides the motion. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, this is Nick Darnell, second.
Mr. Darnell provides the second. Further discussion? Mr. Griffin, please call the roll.
Mr. Cobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Darnell.
Aye.
Mr. Eby. Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson.
Aye.
Mr. Jensen.
Aye.
Ms. Kim.
Aye.
Mr. Morrow. Mr. Morrow. Madam Chairman Hartgrove.
Aye.
Madam Chairman, you have 8 ayes.
The ayes have it and the motion is approved. Thank you. And you're up again, Michael, with item 3G, educator licensure policy.
Thank you. So this item proposes to add the new 610 mathematics endorsement to the active list of endorsements. Beginning in 2021, we believe we could start issuing this endorsement as early as January 1st, 2021. In addition, there's been some minor cleanup to the endorsement table to just appropriately categorize some of the active endorsements. I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Questions or comments?
This is Nick Darnell. Just want a clarification. If someone is currently enrolled in a ed prep program and they, let's say, were on the path to be 612 and change, you know, they're let's say in their second or third year, that would be possible, correct? As soon as that would take effect.
That's correct, and that's actually kind of laid out in the next item, which provides the detail on the various pathways to get the 610 endorsement. But yes, you're correct. If someone's enrolled in an approved 612 program, they take the NES assessment. Let's say they can't pass that secondary math praxis, but they take the NES assessment, they would qualify to be recommended for the 610 endorsement.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve item 3G?
Madam Chair, this is Gordon Ferguson. I'll move for approval.
Mr. Ferguson provides the motion. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, this is Mike Edwards. I second.
Mr. Edwards provides the second. Any further discussion? Mr. Griffin, please call the roll.
Mr. Cobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Darnell.
Aye.
Mr. Eby.
Let me just say, we've had a power failure here, so I'm trying to run off my home internet. So technology as it is. Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson.
Aye.
Mr. Jensen.
Aye.
Ms. Kim.
Aye.
Mr. Morrow.
Aye.
Madam Chairman Hargrove?
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 9 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Next item, 3H, literacy and specialty area standards for Ed Prep. Michael, you have the floor again.
Thank you. So this policy outlines the specialty area standards and literacy standards required for educator preparation providers and the programs that they offer. So in this policy, we are recommending kind of details about the various pathways that could get someone recommended for the 610 mathematics endorsement. So specifically, if someone is enrolled in a 6-8 mathematics program, in order to be recommended for the 610 math endorsement, they would have to complete one of their 2 clinical placements in grade 9 or 10, and obviously pass the NES assessment. If someone is enrolled in a 612 program and passes the NES assessment, they would qualify to be recommended for that 610 math endorsement. And we also wanted to create a pathway for EPPs to begin proposing programs that would allow them to directly recommend somebody for a 610 mathematics endorsement. In addition, there is a placeholder in this policy for the new integrated early childhood education endorsements as far as standards. We are awaiting the Council for Exceptional Children to approve their standards. We just received word that that should happen within the next few weeks. Once those standards are approved nationally, we plan to bring them to our educator preparation working group and also a smaller group that we've had that's been focused specifically on the creation of these endorsements. And then we anticipate that we'll be able to fill that placeholder before the November board meeting. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Are there questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve item 3H?
Madam Chair, this is Mike Edwards.
Mr. Edwards provides the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Darrell Cobbins.
Mr. Cobbins provides a second. Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins?
Aye.
Mr. Darnell?
Aye.
Mr. Eby?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson?
Aye.
Mr. Jensen?
Aye.
Ms. Kim?
Aye.
Mr. Morrow?
Aye.
Chairman Hargrove?
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 9 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you, Mr. Michael Durline. We appreciate your hard work and due diligence. Keeping it straight. Thank you. Item 3I, Charter Schools Rule, Ms. Judy Spencer.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Judy Spencer, and I'm the Director of Charter Schools for the Tennessee Department of Education. I'm presenting this morning on item 3I, the Charter Schools Rule 0520-14-01 on first reading. This item proposes several small language revisions to increase clarity and consistency throughout the rule. Additionally, this item presents 2 substantive changes. The first is a clarification of the timeline by which a chartering authority must submit to a charter school sponsor its grounds for denial of an application or an amended application. There is currently no time frame by which a chartering authority must submit to a charter school sponsor its grounds for denial of an application or an amended application. As a result, a charter school sponsor may be delayed in completing its amended application or appeal, respectively. The 10-day period was selected in paragraph 2E for an application time period because the chartering authority must report the same information to the department within 10 days, as per the paragraph 1J. Because an application for an appeal is due within 10 days of a denial of an amended application, the proposed time period for notifying a sponsor of the grounds for the denial of the amended application was shortened to 5 days. The second substantive change aligns the language of the rule with state law regarding the amount of state BEP funding for capital outlay. The proposed revision does not change the amount of funding available. I am welcoming your questions now.
Are there any questions for Ms. Spencer? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve item 3I?
So moved, Darrell Cobbins.
Mr. Cobbins provides the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Larry Jensen.
Mr. Jensen provides the second. Without discussion, a roll call vote. Mr. Griffin?
Mr. Cobbins,
Aye.
Mr. Darnell,
Aye.
Mr. Eby,
Aye.
Mr. Edwards,
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson,
Aye.
Mr. Jensen,
Aye.
Ms. Kim,
Aye.
Mr. Morrow,
Aye.
Chairman Hargrove.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 9 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Spencer. Before we move into action items on final reading, I'm going to call on Ms. Kim to make a special recognition. Ms. Kim?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, I just wanted to acknowledge a special group that is with us today, and I suspect is accounting for a number of the participants on this call, and that is the Ed Trust, which is a national organization that, as you may know, advocates for educational equity and has opened up an office in Nashville. They are hosting a watch party today for this meeting and have over 50 attendees from across the state who are joining us, and that includes educators, students, parents, and advocates. And they are here primarily to learn about what we do and what types of decisions we make on behalf of students and schools, which I think is pretty spectacular. I feel honored that they would join us today. This means, Mr. Edwards, Mr. Cobbins, we have to be on our very, very best behavior. I hope you raise a ruckus. Because that to me is great behavior. And yes, welcome, Ed Trust and advocates. We're thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you for making that special recognition, and I too want to welcome you. I hope you find this incredibly informative and you see us in action the way that we typically are functioning, having great, robust discussion and doing what is best for students in Tennessee. So thank you for being here. Okay, moving into items on action items on final reading. The first item is 4A, Teacher and Administrator Evaluation Policy. Ms. Martha Moore.
Good morning, Madam Chair and State Board members. I'm Martha Moore, Senior Director of Educator Effectiveness. Thank you for taking time today to review these updates to Teacher and Administrator Policy, Evaluation Policy 5201. Tennessee Code Annotated 4313-111 states that a charter must meet the same performance standards and requirements adopted by the State Board of Education for public schools, and State Board rule states that charter schools shall not be granted a waiver from requirements related to teacher evaluation. State Board Policy 5201 sets forth a requirement for teacher observations by state-approved models and allows charter schools or charter management organizations to propose alternate observation models for the purpose of meeting state teacher observation requirements. This item includes 3 charter school proposals for alternate observation models to be added to Appendix B of this policy. Since first reading, department experts have reviewed the 3 alternate observation models shared, and we recommend them for approval. These include Green Dot Public Schools Tennessee School Leader Evaluation, Freedom Prep Charter Schools Principal Evaluation Framework, and Capstone Education Observation Model. Additionally, since first reading, the department has completed an annual review of Appendix C, the approved achievement measures, and recommends the updates provided. These updates align the language of the achievement measure list and worksheet to the department's accountability files and the TVOS website, which adds clarity to the selection process and accuracy to the list of measures. No measures have been removed. This request is governed by both State Board Policy 5201 and Tennessee Code Annotated 491302, which states that 15% of an educator's level of overall effectiveness scores are to be comprised of measures of student achievement and that these measures shall be aligned as closely as possible to the primary teaching assignment. We recommend the acceptance of these items, and the State Board staff concurs with this recommendation, and I'll be happy to take any questions you might have.
Are there any questions or comments for Ms. Moore? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, this is Nick Darnell. So move.
Mr. Darnell provides the motion. Is there a second?
Gordon Ferguson, second.
Mr. Ferguson provides a second. Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Darnell.
Aye.
Mr. Eby. Mr. Edwards. Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson.
Aye.
Mr. Jensen.
Aye.
Ms. Kim. Ms. Kim.
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Morrow.
Aye.
Madam Chairman Hargrove.
Aye.
Madam Chairman, you have 9 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you, Ms. Moore, for being with us and for your presentation. Moving on to item 4B, eligible educative preparation providers permanent rule. Ms. Amy Owen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Currently, State Board Rule 0520-02-04-.03 allows a school district, an LEA, or a consortium of LEAs to apply to become an educator preparation provider. In other words, to prepare teachers for licensure themselves. We have one district currently approved to do so, which is Rutherford County. One of the conditions for an LEA or group of LEAs that wants to become an EPP is that they cannot have received the lowest designation on the state's accountability model for districts in either of the 2 most recent school years. Obviously, the accountability model was not run in this most recent school year due to COVID-19 disruptions. Therefore, the State Board passed emergency rules recently to allow LEAs to apply to become an EPP if they do not have the lowest performance designation in either of the 2 school years where the accountability model was most recently run. So rather than having to look back to 2019-20, we could look back to the 2 years at which the accountability model was actually run prior to that. We do have an emergency rule in effect now for this provision for the upcoming school year. This is a permanent rule. As you may know, emergency rules expire after 180 days. So this permanent rule would go into effect so that any LEA or group of LEAs that wants to become an EPP has a way to do so without having to look back at years where there was not, in fact, district accountability.
Are there any questions or comments for Ms. Owen? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve, Larry Jensen.
Mr. Jensen provides the motion. Is there a second?
Dave Morrow, second.
Mr. Morrow provides the second. Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Darnell.
Aye.
Mr. Eby. Mr. Eby. Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson.
Aye.
Mr. Jensen.
Aye.
Ms. Kim.
Aye.
Mr. Morrow. Mr. Morrow.
Aye. Aye.
Madam Chairman Hargrove.
Aye.
Madam Chair, I counted 8 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you, Mr. Owen. Moving on to item 4C, Charter School Quality Charter Authorizing Standards. Ms. Allie Gaffey.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and members. My name is Allie Gaffey, and I'm the Deputy Director of Charter Schools for the State Board. On final reading today is the Quality Charter Authorizing Standards Policy 6.111. And there have been no changes to this item since first reading. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve item 4C?
Madam Chair, Gordon Ferguson, move for approval.
Mr. Ferguson provides the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Elisa.
Ms. Kim provides the second. Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Darnell.
Aye.
Mr. Eby. Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson.
Aye.
Mr. Jensen.
Aye.
Ms. Kim.
Aye.
Mr. Morrow.
Aye.
Chairman Hargrove.
Aye.
Madam Chair, I count 8 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you very much, Ms. Gaffey. Moving on to item 4D, strategic compensation policy. Ms. Owen is up again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item is Strategic Compensation Policy 5.600. State law requires that all school districts adopt and implement differentiated pay plans in order to assist in doing things like staffing hard-to-staff subject areas or schools and attracting and retaining highly qualified teachers. On first reading, this item had some changes to the introductory language to better align with our rule about differentiated pay plans. So it wasn't so much new information as moving information into the policy to maintain alignment with the rule. We do have one change on final reading that is recommended in consultation with Martha Moore, Janelle Brown at the Department of Education, where they were able to share that they've seen several applications recently where an LEA wanted to use a differentiated pay plan to support teachers who are taking on additional responsibilities for things like coordinating support services for students with unique learning needs, whether that's students with a 504 plan, English learners, things like that, or students who are otherwise identified as at risk, or coordinating programs such as dual enrollment for students who want to have some of those early post-secondary opportunities. These roles enhance educator capacity. It's building leadership training for teachers. It's also enhancing school and district capacity to better support their students. Based on those criteria, we felt they were appropriate for inclusion in differentiated pay plans. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions or comments for Ms. Owen? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve item 4D?
This is Mike Edwards. Madam Chair, I'll make the motion.
Mr. Edwards provides the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Darrell Cobbins.
Mr. Cobbins provides a second. Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Darnell.
Aye.
Mr. Eby. Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson.
Aye.
Mr. Jensen.
Aye.
Ms. Kim.
Aye.
Mr. Morrow. Mr. Morrow.
Aye.
Madam Chairman Hargrove.
Aye.
Madam Chair, I count 8 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you again, Ms. Owen. Now moving on to item 4E, repeal Tennessee Early Intervention Systems Rule. Ms. Angie Sanders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Angie Sanders. I'm the General Counsel for the State Board. This final read item proposes to repeal the State Board's rules governing the Tennessee Early Intervention System, or TEIS, as the Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities is taking over administration of the TEIS program and promulgating new rules governing that program pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order Number 10. On December 2nd, 2019, Governor Bill Lee signed Executive Order Number 10, transferring responsibility for administration of TEIS from the Department of Education to the Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. His executive order stated that the transfer of TEIS to the Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities is aligned with the services currently provided by that department and will result in a more economic, efficient, and streamlined state service. This transfer of TEIS took effect on July 1, 2020, and therefore we're proposing that the board approve repeal of the rules. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve item 4E?
This is Mike Edwards, I move.
Mr. Edwards provides the motion. Is there a second?
Gordon Ferguson, second.
Mr. Ferguson provides the second. Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Collins,
Aye.
Mr. Darnell,
Aye.
Mr. Eby, Mr. Edwards,
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson,
Aye.
Mr. Jensen,
Aye.
Ms. Kim,
Aye.
Mr. Morrow,
Aye.
Madam Chairman Hartgrove.
Aye.
Madam Chair, I count 8 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you, Ms. Sanders. Moving on to item 4F, physical activity policy. Ms. Amy Owen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm presenting the Physical Activity Policy 4.206. Due to some of the changes we're proposing today, we're also actually recommending a change to the policy name to include physical activity and physical education policy. So that's one change. The physical activity policy was first adopted by the board in 2005 and was updated in 2017 based on some legislative changes. Since that time, there was even more recent legislation known as the Tom Cronin Physical Education Act. That was passed in 2018 but had implementation delayed by several years. That law requires that all elementary school students receive physical education at least twice per week for a minimum of combined 60 minutes. So 30 minutes each, from a licensed PE teacher or physical education specialist. That law is slated to go into effect this school year. Therefore, we have added a section to this policy incorporating the requirements in the law. The policy does not add any additional requirements for school districts. It is simply moving everything about physical activity and physical education into this policy for clear and comprehensive district use. And I'm happy to answer questions you may have about this.
Are there any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, this is Mike Edwards.
Yes, Mr. Edwards.
So, my document on this thing blinked off, so help me to understand, on the Tom Cronin, are we being asked to implement it, put it into place, or to defer it?
That's a great question, and it will come up again with item 4M. For this policy, because the law is going into effect and we need to be responsive to that in our policies, we are putting the requirements from law into policy. However, we are obviously entering into a unique and just really unprecedented school year where districts have many, many concerns that they're thinking through, and implementing this law would be something newer for many of them. Therefore, when we get to item 4N and discuss waivers related to COVID, you will see that several LEAs have requested waivers from that Cronin law. If the board should decide to approve any sort of waiver from the law, it would also waive those policy requirements. You know, obviously law trumps state board policy, so that's how the waivers would work. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
This is Nate Morrow. I have a question. So you're saying that this puts a new burden or a new requirement on LEAs, and so we're saying that there are LEAs that have, or there's students who have not been getting PE or physical activity twice a week for 30 minutes prior
correct.
to this?
That's correct.
And wow. Well, I would just say then, as we're looking at the unprecedented times you're talking about, I know this will come up when we look at the waivers, but I think when you're looking at the research from child well-being, social emotional development, cognitive development, even navigating anxiety, that physical activity right now is of the utmost importance for student development, for brain development, for navigating the real emotional needs of kids. And there's, decades of research showing the effects of that, the positive effects of physical activity. So I'm glad that this is then going into putting this into action, because to not let kids get activity, especially at this age and stage, I think would be harmful.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I do want to clarify that regardless of any action y'all take today on this policy, the law is going into effect. The policy is really where we're trying to aggregate all of the information on physical activity and education requirements for districts. It is, as I said, not imposing any new or additional requirements that are not already in law.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Edwards.
Mr. Cobbins said it far better than I could. I'm going to speak to the waiver when we get to M, but I fear that we have ignored health at the expense. We've focused on very important subjects like STEM, but at the expense of very important subjects and activities like phys ed. And they both are lifetime skills that they need to learn in public school. So I am going to speak to the problems that the LEAs are having with Tom Cronin Act at M, as I said, but I do want to put a placeholder in that Tom Cronin, in my opinion, phys ed, period, is incredibly important to the health and well-being of our students and their future.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Is that Ms. Kemp? I'm sorry, did I hear somebody else speaking?
Madam Chair, this is Bob Eby.
Yes, Mr. Eby.
Little technical difficulty here. I actually have moved houses. Our whole neighborhood had a power outage, but I understand and reconnected that we're talking about the Tom Cronin Act. I too am going to reserve most of my statements for the waiver, but just say that I'm really excited that we're bringing this up and that we are going to vote on this policy. And when we get to the waiver, I would like to have a little more time to talk about that.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Morrow. You have a unique perspective on this as the head of a school. So we thank you for your comments and welcome any other comments from any other board members before we move into a vote.
This is Larry Johnson. I'm very supportive of this as well. I guess I look at it from a strategic perspective and say, great. I look at it from a tactical measuring perspective in the current environment, and I have some concerns that perhaps we can discuss. Or again, it is law, so it's going to happen, but I'm not sure how you measure this if you're in a virtual school environment, and we can discuss that in the waiver too.
Absolutely, because I think really what's before us today is to put this policy into place, to vote on it and move forward, and then deal with the waivers separate and apart, because as Amy has already said, it's law, and so it's our responsibility to put it into policy, and then we deal with the waivers separately. So I welcome all of those comments, and any other comments for now before we move into a vote on this item, and then we can get into the further discussion when we get into those waivers.
I move for approval, Larry Jensen.
Mr. Jensen provides the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Nate Morrow.
Mr. Morrow provides the second. Further discussion or comments? Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Darnell.
Aye.
Mr. Eby. Mr. Eby.
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson.
Aye.
Mr. Jensen?
Aye.
Ms. Kim?
Aye.
Mr. Morrow?
Aye.
Madam Chairman Hartgrove?
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 9 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you, Ms. Owen. Moving into item 4G, the 2020 to 2025 Strategic Goals and Master Plan. Ms. Owen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I promise this is your last item for me for today. TCA 491302 requires the State Board to develop and maintain a current master plan for the development of public education, kindergarten through grade 12. We accomplish this in 2 ways. First, we set 5-year strategic goals, what the board wants to work toward over the long term, and then we set an annual master plan with specific benchmarks and action steps that will move us incrementally toward those goals. As I reviewed yesterday in our workshop presentation, the board engaged in a comprehensive strategic planning process over the last 8 months with a strategic planning consultant. We interviewed about 40 individuals, including all board members and staff, leaders at the Department of Ed, the state legislature, and various advocacy and community groups across Tennessee. We also reviewed master plan and strategic plan type documents from about 30 other states, both for their departments and boards of education, because every state has a slightly different governance structure, and what's applicable to a department in one state might be applicable to a board in another state. Based on all of that, we've created several rounds of drafts. We had our senior leadership team at the board work on a first draft, which we shared with board members and got feedback on. We then shared an updated draft with board members during a non-deliberative working session prior to our May meeting. Based on your feedback at that time, I'm excited to present to you the 2020 through 25 strategic goals and 2020-21 master plan that represents our first year of work toward those strategic goals. As I mentioned a little bit earlier when we talked about the mission statement policy, we really focus, both board members and staff, on establishing goals that are within our authority and area of control. Our goals for the previous 5 years were very lofty student achievement goals that we all want to see happen, things like achieving a 21 on the ACT or being in the top half of NAEP. And I gave some updates yesterday on our progress toward those goals. However, it's not immediately clear how the board would be accountable whether or not those things were reached. We're not teaching in classrooms, we're not districts making hiring decisions or selecting materials. So the goals for this time are really around establishing a strong and cohesive policy framework for the state so that LEAs can operate within those and really meet the needs of their own district while having some clear parameters and expectations from the state. So all of those documents are available on our website. I'd encourage the public to review them and see what the board is going to be working toward over the next 5-year period. And I look forward in our February meeting and then next year in July giving you updates on our progress toward the master plan from this year and what our next steps will be from there. Thank you. And thank you to all the board members. I sent, I know, quite a lot of emails about this, and we had lots of phone calls, and you set aside time for interviews and giving feedback, and it really has been a fantastic joint effort.
Thank you, Ms. Owen. I do want to acknowledge your leadership on this for the State Board, as well as the great work with the team there at the State Board. Great work behind the scenes, getting us all ready and prepared to respond to and weigh in on the recommendations that you all were providing. So thank you all so much for that. I know it's been a lot of work to get us to this point, so thank you so much. Are there any comments, questions for Ms. Owen? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, this is Mike Edwards. I move.
Mr. Edwards provides the motion. Is there a second?
Larry Jensen, second.
I heard Mr. Jensen. Mr. Jensen provides the second. Any other discussion or comments? Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins?
Aye.
Mr. Darnell?
Aye.
Mr. Reedy?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson,
Aye.
Mr. Jensen,
Aye.
Ms. Kim,
Aye.
Mr. Morrow,
Aye.
Madam Chairman Hargrove,
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 9 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you so much. Moving on to the next item, 4H, Educator Preparation Providers and Specialty Area Program Approvals. Mr. Michael Durline.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michael Durline, Senior Director of Educator Licensure and Preparation. I'm also joined by Dr. Annie Insana, Senior Director of Educator Preparation. Annie manages this process, and yesterday the board heard from us about the various steps we take to ensure fidelity of the process and the various types of reviews that we conduct. And so today before you are action recommendations for 11 active and prospective EPPs. My plan is to kind of go through each of these, explain just briefly what type of review it was, and then take any questions that you may have. So the first recommendation or set of recommendations are for joint CAPE accreditation and state specialty area program comprehensive reviews. University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. All of these reviews, by the way, took place in the fall of 2019. University of Tennessee at Chattanooga is recommended for full approval with minor stipulations and full approval of the 23 specialty area programs they offer. Freed-Hardeman University is recommended for full approval along with the 19 specialty area programs they offer. Carson-Newman University recommended for full approval along with 31 specialty area programs. The next group of recommendations are state-managed EPP and specialty area program comprehensive reviews. Maryville College is recommended for full approval, minor stipulations, and full approval of the 12 specialty area programs they offer. Bryan College is recommended for probationary approval with major stipulations, full approval for the 7 specialty area programs they offer. Tusculum University is recommended for full approval, minor stipulations, and full approval of the 26 specialty area programs they offer. South College is recommended for probationary approval with major stipulations and full approval of 1 specialty area program. The next series or 2 recommendations are focused reviews, which you heard quite a bit about yesterday. The first is Bethel University. They are being recommended for full approval, minor stipulations. No specialty area programs were required to be reviewed during that focused review. Johnson University is being recommended for full approval along with the 4 specialty area programs they offer. And lastly, we have 2 recommendations for prospective EPPs. And so that review, as you heard yesterday, is conducted by the department staff. The first is Western Governors University, and they are recommended for initial approval, approval of 2 specialty area programs, and denial of 3 specialty area programs. And then Motlow State Community College, also a prospective EPP application, is being recommended for denial of initial approval. I'd be happy to take any questions you may have about the process or follow-up following your vote today.
Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Michael Durline?
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Mike
Mr.
Edwards.
Yes, Mr. Edwards.
It's more about the process and the work product. I think that I've been on the board 9 years, and I have observed EP evaluations throughout that time. And I can say I really believe that today there's very substantive feedback to that we're giving, the state's giving to these very important colleges that are providing a huge success. And what you, Michael, and staff and our folks are doing are helping them to get better. And they're stepping up and they're meeting that. So well done, Michael, well done, everybody. And well done to these great institutions that are out there doing very hard work.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that.
Are there other questions or comments? I want to, again, thank you, Michael and Dr. Asana. You did a great job yesterday informing the board of the process that you go through. And you had, I believe we said it was 11 universities that you had and colleges that you had to evaluate. And pleased to see the great work that you did here. Would you just, for the viewing audience, explain just briefly the process you go through with a college or university that has been given probationary approval with major stipulations? Just a few minutes on that.
Sure. So if an EPP is recommended for probationary approval, major stipulations, there is a process by which we engage with that EPP to focus specifically on the areas where they did not meet standards. In addition, it does require, per State Board rule, a focused review, which has to take place, I believe, within 3 years. And that focused review is much like our comprehensive review, but focused specifically on the areas that they did not meet expectations. I will also just add, as I mentioned earlier, this is another opportunity where we are seeing the benefit of connecting EPPs to each other. And I don't think we've always had that sort of a culture in this state, but I think we very much do now. And so we're seeing that some of those EPPs that are being recommended for probationary approval today, or even just those that have minor stipulations, are already proactively connecting with EPPs that have done a great job in some of the areas where they may be struggling. And Annie, if you're on, if you happen to have anything you'd like to add, please feel free to jump in.
Thanks, Michael. Annie Insana, Senior Director of Educator Preparation. I just echo what Michael was saying. We have the added benefit of having multiple networking opportunities, such as our TAC team meetings and other opportunities for EPPs to converse with one another about both areas of strength and areas for growth. And we're just happy to be part of this community and proud of our EPPs and the work that they've done.
Thank you for that. I have one last clarification question. With regard to Motlow and the denial of their application, are there steps that you all are taking to connect them to other EPPs or other supports that you may be going through with them to give them some guidance with regard to what they need to do to be approved in the future, especially in light of the fact of our shortage of teachers? So,
Annie, would you mind jumping in and sharing what we've done thus far?
Sure. So for each stage of the review, there's comprehensive feedback that's provided back to the EPP in each of the areas that they're being reviewed. So they do have that feedback. And generally what we do is whenever an EPP reaches out, of course, an EPP, if they're recommended for denial of approval, can reapply at any time during the next cycle. And so we provide a lot of technical support in that regard, walking through the EPPs to discuss in detail that feedback, and especially the areas of deficiency are able to connect that EPP with another peer EPP that understands the processes well. And so we've done that with other providers that have not been successful through that process, and are happy to do that again with Motlow State Community College.
Excellent, thank you. Are there other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve item 4H?
Madam Chair, this is Mike Edwards. I so move.
Mr. Edwards provides the motion. Is there a second?
This is Nick Darnell, second.
Mr. Darnell provides the second. Any other questions or discussion? Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins?
Aye.
Mr. Darnell?
Aye.
Mr. Eby? Mr. Eby? Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson?
Aye.
Mr. Jensen?
Aye.
Ms. Kim?
Aye.
Mr. Morrow?
Aye.
Chairman Hargrove?
Aye.
Madam Chair, I count 8 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you, Mike and Dr. Insana. Moving on to item 4I, special course policy, Dr. Hank Staggs.
Hi, good morning, Madam Chair and members. Great to see everybody today. I'm Hank Staggs, Director of Instruction, Technology, and Support for the Standards and Materials Office at the Department of Education. This item related to State Board of Education Rule 05200103.052 and also Special Courses Policy 3.201, which allows school districts the ability to apply and to offer special courses that are not listed in the State Board's approved high school courses policy 3.205. So the department annually reviews special course applications and assigns subject-specific course codes to special courses approved for 1, 3, or even 6 years. So this item presents for the board's approval the list of all special course applications received by the department for the 2021 school year, along with their recommended approval status, and also, if applicable, the number of years for which the special course is recommended for approval. The item does not include any rule or policy revisions. The department recommends approval of this item on first and final reading, and the State Board staff has concurred with this recommendation. Happy to take any questions.
Are there questions or comments? I do have one. I've asked this question previously, and I know other board members have, when there are denials. I'm going to ask it again. There are a fair number of them, and several that have cited their partnership with a TCAT. And so can you share with us the reason for the denials? And I'm specifically talking about Jackson and Macon with their partnership with a TCAT, Overton, because they've been offering those courses before, and some of them are in partnership with their local TCAT, Wilson on coding and Rutherford on audio production.
Yes, exactly. All of those that you have mentioned, there's already a course code. So basically, it's not denial of the course already exists. And so when we approve the special course application, generally that creates a new course code. So these denials were with the dual credit course, they're already there. So the course will be offered, the course is approved, it's just there's already a course code there. So the application was denied, saying that we are not going to be creating a new course code.
So do they already understand that?
Yes, we can. Right, yeah. So we send out a letter to every application that comes in and let them know that. And then we're also very closely in contact with the districts when they support or when they submit the applications to let them know.
Great, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Ms. Gordon Ferguson, move for approval.
Mr. Ferguson provides the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Darrell. Second.
Mr. Cobbins provides the second. Any other discussion? Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Darnell.
Aye.
Mr. Eby. Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson.
Aye.
Mr. Jensen.
Aye.
Ms. Kim.
Aye.
Mr. Morrow.
Aye.
Chairman Hartgrove.
Aye.
Madam Chair, I count 8 ayes.
The ayes have it and the motion is approved. Thank you so much for being here with us today and for those clarifications. Moving on to 4J, Tennessee Educator Preparation Policy. Michael Durline.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello again. This recommendation is an addition to the educator preparation policy. Last spring, the board provided flexibility to individuals completing educator preparation programs in light of COVID-19 that essentially waived the student teaching or clinical practice requirement, and EPPs could consider recommending candidates regardless. Now, this recommendation looks ahead to the next school year and focuses on giving EPPs flexibility in designing clinical practice experiences and modifying existing experiences for the 2020-21 school year. EPPs will be required to submit plans to us just to demonstrate exactly what they are modifying with clinical practice in a few different areas, instructional plans or overall structure. So whether candidates are going to be doing more online instruction, specifically how clinical practice will look, and how they're ensuring equity across candidates that may have some challenges. So this template, I did want to update you, is essentially ready to go. We have received feedback from a few EPPs, and we do have to get that approved internally. But we are, if approved, we are ready to move quickly and allow EPPs to start submitting these plans. The policy does require that they be submitted by August 31st. Happy to take any questions you may have.
Are there any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, this is Nick.
Yes, Mr. Darnell.
Just a comment of how important the placements are to be able to work with students as you're entering student teaching. I can think back several years ago to Tusculum College, now Tusculum University. I was able to gain a lot of knowledge and a lot of skill, but when I think to my student teaching, that's where it got real, and where I was able to really pick up the experience to be a successful teacher, to actually be in a classroom. And sadly, that may not be the case with students who are getting ready to enter their student teaching this next semester or even the next semester. So I applaud this flexibility to allow student teachers to be virtual instructors, so that even though it's not the ideal situation, they're still going to be gaining that experience of dealing with students and being able to instruct. And who knows, this may be something that continues for years. So they'll gain that valuable access. So just a thanks that this is going to be a possibility for at least the next few semesters.
I do have a comment or a question with regard to the template. It's my understanding that you did seek, as you said, input from the field, and I believe you shared it with several EPPs to get their input. And I know you're waiting for approval, and you don't have a crystal ball, but can you estimate when you think you may have final approval so that the EPPs can have it in their hands as quickly as possible with a looming deadline of August the 31st? And although I don't think it's onerous to complete it, I still would like to have an idea of when you expect to release it.
Likely next week.
Next week?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
And I think it's also important to note, we recognize EPPs are having to make shifts already. We've heard from a number of EPPs, if their partner district has already started school, they're needing to be flexible and figure out exactly how student teachers play into the start of school. So this is really just an opportunity for them to document it and for us to see that the changes they're making are still maintaining the rigor of the experience.
Excellent. So if you receive the template back, then you'll take it through a review and approval process internally. How quickly do you think you'll be able to turn that approval around, or denial for that matter, especially if they're ready to move forward with putting those new experiences into place?
It would be an internal review, and I think it could be done very quickly. Our intent is not to overly scrutinize this. What we're hearing from our EPPs are really solid approaches to ensuring that candidates are right in there with teachers, regardless of what the setting looks like. So denial, in my mind, would really only happen if an EPP was seeking to just excuse the entire practice and say that it cannot be done, or to very much minimize the experience for student teachers. So I do anticipate that could happen very quickly.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, this is Nick Darnell. So move.
Mr. Darnell provides the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Chair.
Mr. Cobbins provides a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins?
Aye.
Mr. Darnell?
Aye.
Mr. Eby? Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson?
Aye.
Mr. Jensen?
Aye.
Ms. Kim?
Aye.
Mr. Morrow?
Aye.
Chairman Hartgrove?
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 8 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you for the excellent work. Appreciate you being here today and sharing again. The next item is item 4K, Charter School Amendment Petition Application and rubric. Ms. Spencer.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I am Judy Spencer, Director of Charter Schools for the Tennessee Department of Education. I am presenting on item 4K, the Charter School Amendment Petition Application and Rubric on first and final reading. Tennessee Code Annotated Section 4913-110B provides the governing body of the public charter school may petition the authorizer to amend the original charter agreement. Timelines for approval and the appeal process will be determined by the State Board of Education. State Board Rule 0520-14-01-.06 lays out the timeline and process for charter schools to petition their authorizers for amendments to their charter agreements and requires the Tennessee Department of Education to develop and the State Board to approve an application and rubric to be used for the amendment petitions. The rule went into effect on April 30, 2020. The Tennessee Department of Education worked with State Board staff on the development of the amendment application and rubric and sought feedback from stakeholders prior to submission to the State Board for approval. These stakeholders included representation from charter school authorizers, charter school operators, and the Tennessee Charter School Center. I would be happy to take any questions now. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments for Ms. Spencer? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
This is Bob Eby. I move for approval.
Mr. Eby provides the motion. Is there a second?
Gordon Ferguson, second.
Mr. Ferguson provides the second. Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins?
Aye.
Mr. Darnell?
Aye.
Mr. Eby?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson?
Aye.
Mr. Jensen?
Aye.
Ms. Kim?
Aye.
Mr. Morrow? Mr. Morrow?
Aye.
Chairman Hartgrove?
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 9 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. We're going to take a short, thank you so much. We're going to take a short break and reconvene to complete the I believe we have 2 or 3 more items left on final approval. Let's reconvene at 10:50. Take a couple of extra minutes. 10:50. Thank you all. We will get started in 1 minute. It's 10:50 and we'll get restarted with items 4L, COVID-19 pre-identified waivers. Ms. Christy Ballard.
Good morning, Madam Chair, thank you. I am Christy Ballard, General Counsel of the Department of Education. You have before you a package of COVID-19 waiver requests from school districts for consideration. As a reminder, Chapter 652 of the Public Acts of 2020 granted the Commissioner of Education the authority, upon approval of the State Board of Education, to waive state statutes and/or state board rules that inhibit or hinder an LEA's ability to meet the LEA's goals or comply with the LEA's mission due solely to the outbreak of COVID-19. The department created a waiver application for LEAs to utilize to request these waivers. The waiver application contains boxes for LEAs to check to request a waiver from one or more of 3 specific identified areas. We call those the pre-filled or pre-identified waivers. Additionally, the waiver application contains an open-ended section for LEAs to request waivers from other statutes or state board rules. So this first item includes those pre-identified waivers. And you will recall at the last 2 previous board meetings, the board has approved similar waivers. So I will go over the 3 pre-filled waivers that are included on this spreadsheet. The first one, a waiver of TCA 495409B, which requires school districts to notify teachers within 5 business days following the last instructional day for the school year if a teacher's contract will not be renewed for the succeeding school year. So LEAs granted this waiver must provide teachers notice that their contracts will not be renewed for the 2021 school year no later than June 15th. The second waiver, a waiver of 49-5-5034, which states that teachers who have received evaluations demonstrating an overall performance effectiveness level of above expectations or significantly above expectations as provided in the evaluation guidelines adopted by the State Board of Education pursuant to 49-1302 during the last 2 years of the probationary period are eligible for tenure. Now, LEAs granted this waiver may allow teachers who have met all other requirements for tenure eligibility but have not acquired an official evaluation score during the 2019-2020 school year due to COVID-19 school closures may utilize the most recent 2 years of available evaluation scores achieved during the probationary period for purposes of determining eligibility for tenure, and that 2019-2020 school year will count towards a teacher's 5-year probationary period. The last pre-identified waiver in this item is a waiver of TCA 49-2-202A6 and State Board of Education Rule 0520-1-2-.11, requiring every member of a local board of education to participate in annual training. This waiver will only be granted for a local board of education member who is unable to complete the annual training requirements due to cancellation of in-person meetings due to COVID-19 and is unable to participate in online modules due to lack of equipment and or internet services. So these waivers in large part are about last school year and the requirements that could not have been met. And with that, the department recommends approval of this item, and I believe that the state board staff concurs.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Ms. Ballard? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Gordon Ferguson, I'll move for approval.
Second, Darrell.
Mr. Ferguson provides the motion and Mr. Cobbins provides the second. Mr. Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Colvin,
Aye.
Mr. Darnell,
Aye.
Mr. Eby,
Aye.
Mr. Edwards,
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson,
Aye.
Mr. Jensen,
Aye.
Ms. Kemp,
Aye.
Mr. Morrow,
Aye.
Chairman Harkup.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 9 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Moving on to item 4M, COVID-19 additional unique waivers. Ms. Ballard?
Thank you. Again, I'm Christy Ballard, General Counsel for the Department of Education. And the item before you now is an additional packet of COVID-19 waivers. This packet contains the open-ended section for LEAs to request waivers from other statutes or state board rules that are not pre-identified on the waiver application. So you will note this is the first package or round of these waivers that has been brought to you. This item, if you will look at the spreadsheet, it includes the waivers that have been recommended for either approval, conditional approval, or denial by the Commissioner of Education. The waiver requests are grouped by LEA and then divided into those 3 categories. So, and I will note that the waivers that are denoted as conditional approval, that means that the approval would be granted if certain conditions are met or with specific requirements that the LEA must still meet as a condition of receiving the waiver. Now, I would like to identify that there was a last-minute revision. Some of you will note that the item was revised yesterday morning early, and I want to just call that out and apologize. In our final review, we determined there were a few waivers from districts that were left off of that first list. So we asked to have it revised. We did not want any school district to not see their waiver being acted upon at this meeting due to a department error. So I want to deeply apologize to the board members. I will say that there were no new additions. They were the same package of waivers, just a few others off. So we know districts are facing extremely important but difficult decisions on reopening schools, and their top priority is to create the safest environment for students and staff while maintaining, really high standards for student learning. And from speaking to the district leaders that requested these waivers, they do not take the requirements that are in the education laws and state board rules lightly. So they're communicating that they are trying to only request waivers they felt were necessary in this emergency. So in reviewing these waivers and making recommendations to the state board, and we worked closely with state board staff, I think the department's goal was to strike that right balance between maintaining high standards that have been set by the General Assembly and this body, the state board, in law and rule, and granting districts the flexibility they need during this COVID-19 pandemic to ensure that they are able to create the safest learning environments possible so that they can take care of all student needs while providing high quality instruction. Now, the factors, more specifically, that the department and state board staff took into account during our review, we reviewed the specificity of each waiver application request, and we looked at whether or not the request was for a very specific purpose. We considered whether the waiver could be granted based on state law. We considered whether there was a superseding federal law that might prevent the granting of the waiver. So those were factors. We also looked at whether or not a waiver granting of a waiver would pose an even greater safety risk that might have tipped the scales in favor, of not granting the waiver. So having said that, for efficiency, I will talk about the most requested waivers, and then I'll stand ready for specific questions that you might have. In the 3 large categories, the most requested waivers that we saw under the approved category would have been the Tom Cronin Act, and I know we've already talked about that a great deal this morning. And remember that there is a larger statute 49-6-1021 that encompasses, the general laws that have been on the books for a long time for physical activity and physical education. But the Tom Cronin Act was passed in 2018 and amended that statute and added those requirements for physical education, that 60 minutes a week for elementary school students, and also required that the teachers teaching those physical education courses were properly endorsed as physical education teachers. So that's in the approved category, but I will note that the department has recommended granting of the full waiver. I believe the state board staff has recommended a more narrow approach and recommending waivers of only that portion of the Tom Cronin Act that requires a specific PE endorsement for those teachers. Now, I would yield to state board staff if they would like to speak more on their specific recommendation. With that, I'll go on to the other two under the approved category, but please stop me at any time if you have specific questions. Duty-free lunch. That was a very common request, and when you read the application request, you will see that the idea behind that, or the reason most districts felt like they needed to make that request, is trying to manage feeding students lunch in a very safe manner. A lot of districts are electing to keep them in their classrooms and cart in lunch, and so during that time they felt like they needed teachers to monitor lunch during that time, since they're not taking kids into the classroom. So it was a very specific request for a specific safety reason. Class size average was a very commonly requested waiver. We had waivers requesting waivers of class size average, class size maximum. Now, to tell you why the maximum class size is in the denied category versus the average is in the approved, there is a specific provision in current state law on class size average and max that says neither the board nor the department may issue waivers of class size maximums. So we have always interpreted that as being language that prohibited a waiver of the maximum class size. That is why you will see the recommendation to approve class size average waivers, but not class size maximums. Moving down to the conditionally approved section, there are two common ones that we noted. The fire and safety drills requirements in the law. Now you will see on the spreadsheet there are a few fire and safety drill waiver requests that are in the approved category. Those are only because they were requested for waivers of the requirements for the 2019-2020 school year, and they couldn't, because schools closed down to in-person instruction, they couldn't meet those requirements. The ones that are in the conditional box are for the upcoming school year, and those are conditionally approved based on the requirement that if there is in-person instruction going on in a school, they have to maintain the requirements for fire and safety drills. If a school is going totally to remote instruction during a period of time when they're implementing their COP, they would have to maintain those requirements. Maximum time in transit is another waiver request where the recommendation is under the conditionally approved category. The reason that several districts requested that a waiver of the maximum time in transit, it's a law that says no student can be in transit on a bus to school more than an hour and a half, basically. And I did reach out to some directors to talk about like the very specific need for that. And what they said is if they institute practices of social distancing on school buses where they have fewer kids on the bus because they have fewer kids in seats, while they will have to run more routes, and one would think maybe the routes would be shorter, but because they're instituting other safety protocols like screening children as they get on the bus, they feared that the routes might take a bit longer, and they just needed a little flexibility. And they said, basically, if we just had, moved it to 2 hour max, because we didn't want any kid to be on the bus for hours, but we wanted to give them a little flexibility so that they could institute those safety protocols. So that is why that one is in the conditional approval category. Under the category of denials, there were several requests to waive laws related to RTI and special education, some of the special education dispute resolution requirements in our law. As you know, we have superseding, federal law that mandates those provisions, so we could not issue a waiver of state law that is also mandated by federal law, IDEA specifically. That is the same issue really with the RTI request, because RTI is the method by which school districts identify children with specific learning disabilities as part of, Child Find under IDEA. Waiving that state requirement would be in effect waiving that special education requirement, so we felt that that had to be denied. I've also already spoken to the maximum class size. Here again, we think the state law prohibits a waiver of the maximum class size, but we did recommend approval of the average. We had a large number of districts recommending just a waiver of the instructional time requirements in the law, that 180 days. And of course, that is the purpose of the CLP, that school districts are implementing a fully approved CLP. That is what shows us how they are meeting the 180-day instructional requirements, even in an emergency situation where they may have to move to some remote instruction. And we knew we did not want to recommend just a waiver in general of the instructional day requirements in the law because of that. Individual planning time. This is much like the duty-free lunch for teachers, with the exception the requirements are that teachers have a certain number of minutes of duty-free planning time per week. Most districts who requested this simply stated they needed, as much flexibility as possible for scheduling purposes during this time. That was the reason stated for the request. So we really weighed, this was a tough one, we weighed the district's stated need for that general flexibility for scheduling, against the increased need for teachers who will really need to probably take extra steps to prepare and to plan instruction that will look different in this upcoming school year. And the department and I think the state board staff, we all thought that the need of teachers to prepare during this time probably tipped the scales over granting the waiver for general flexibility. So that is where that recommendation landed. There were also various requests for waiving, it would just say accountability. And to be honest, there's not a lot of accountability specific. They did not name specific provisions in the rule or law a lot of the time. And a lot of the accountability rules come from federal law as well. So that is why that is in the denial category. That is the whirlwind tour at a high level of some of the waiver requests and our recommendations. But I want to now just step back and allow you to ask questions if we want to have some discussion.
Thank you for that, Ms. Ballard. And before we open it up to board members for their questions and comments, I am going to turn to Mr. Nathan James to read two letters that we have received, one from Representative Lowell Russell and one from Lieutenant Governor McNally. Mr. James?
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and members. I'm Nathan James, Director of Legislative and External Affairs for the State Board of Education. The first one I'll read is from Lowell Russell when it came to us actually during this meeting. He represents the 21st Legislative District, parts of Loudoun and Monroe counties. Board members, Michael Guerin, Director of Schools of Loudoun County Schools, has submitted a waiver application requesting the Tom Cronin Act be waived for Loudoun County, Tennessee. On behalf of Director Green, I would like to share my support for the waiver application to be considered before the State Board of Education on July 24, 2020. Thank you for your consideration. And sincerely, Lowell Russell, Representative 21st Legislative District. The other letter we have received is from Lieutenant Governor McNally. Dear Chairman Hartgrove, I'm writing this letter to voice my support for allowing the Tom Cronin Physical Education Act to take effect this year. Physical education is an important part of a child's education. According to the Tennessee Department of Education and the Department of Health, quote, incorporating movement before, during, and after the school day has been proven to enhance the cognitive capacity of children. When students are active, they process and retain information more effectively, leading to increased academic performance. Active students also tend to have greater attention spans, better behavior, and can have better overall mental health, end of quote. According to the Department of Education's 2018 Physical Education Physical Activity Report, physical education and physical activity help the brain by not only increasing academic performance, but by decreasing stress. I think it's important to help manage stress with our school-age children during this time of pandemic. With this pandemic going on, it's important to keep children healthy and active, especially those children who will be learning in a remote environment. They need breaks with plenty of activity, from being on a computer all day to not only help keep them active, but help their focus as well. Physical education will also be beneficial to those children in a school environment, as the data in the report cited above shows. I ask that the board not approve any waivers to the Tom Cronin Physical Education Act and allow children the full benefits of a physical education that serves to further their academic education as well. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Randy McNally, Doctor of Pharmacy, Dean of the Legislature, Speaker of the Senate, Lieutenant Governor of Tennessee.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you for reading both of those letters. I certainly appreciate us receiving the letter from Representative Lowell Russell. I also want to, comment regarding the letter from Lieutenant Governor McNally. He is a strong partner with us at the State Board of Education. We value certainly both opinions, and I do know that many of you have expressed a shared opinion with Lieutenant Governor McNally. And so with that being said, I do want to hear from the other members regarding your thoughts on all of these items that we were being asked to vote on, and specifically this one, the Tom Cronin Act and the waivers associated with those. I'm certainly eager to hear your opinion on those. I'm opening it up to the floor. Who would like to go first?
Madam Chair, Bob Eby, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Eby, please proceed.
Okay, we're doing this through various technologies. I asked the board to just bear with me for a minute. First, let me say, we're number one. Yeah, yay. Isn't that what most people try to be? Number one, but not in the... Tennessee ranks number one in childhood obesity by one report at 38% and another report at 47%. This isn't only sad, but it impacts our ability to entice new businesses to the state as well. But most importantly, childhood obesity rates can lead to diabetes, heart disease, and other serious ailments. It adversely affects the long-term lives of our students. To the mission statement, we stated, the mission of the Tennessee State Board of Education is to ensure policies and systems are in place for success after graduation. This statement doesn't say academic success, it says success, which includes our well-being as an adult. In fact, this ties directly with the Commissioner's Best for All focus, which is based on 3 pillars. The first pillar speaks of the whole child, and it says, Tennessee public schools will be equipped to serve the academic and non-academic needs of all students. I know the districts and all of us are challenged, in particular during this time due to the COVID pandemic. And I am sure, as the rest of the board members, have received emails asking for the waivers of the Tom Cronin Act. And particularly, we are all concerned about the impact of the COVID slide and how it will respond academically to that. But I'm just as concerned about the impact of all those COVID sliders that we have eaten and that our students have eaten. It's a term I came up with, pun intended, that have been consumed. We've heard of the freshman 15, now it's the quarantine 15. I don't have the data, but I know that we just got a report from the governor on the impacts of physical health, et cetera, and it talks about the concerns there. but I'm concerned again about this COVID slider impact. Some requests for waivers have been for keeping the 60-minute classes instead of the required 2 30-minute classes. Research on distributed practices says that learning new skills by young students during a 60-minute class is not near as effective as 2 30-minute classes. Adding on to this, I understand that research shows, talked to my wife about this, who is a former teacher, shows that 60 minutes of any concentrated subject is an extended time and difficult to maintain focus for K-3 students. Also, some waiver requests ask us to not use certified PE teachers during the classroom. It's my understanding that at least some plan to utilize existing homeroom teachers. In that case, will the students get true physical education or just an extended recess period? Learning the right methods to exercise, some say, is just as important as using the right methods in learning for math. Furthermore, we're already stretching teachers to the limit. I've received emails from teachers concerned about losing their duty-free lunch. Now we're going to have them add the DE requirement. My data shows that 60% of the schools are already providing 2 30-minute sessions per week or more, and the TDOE is willing to work with any schools to help work out scheduling requirements for other schools. I don't know what the cost would be to require to add the additional teachers for the other 40%, but I do know that these positions were calculated in the BEP formula funding. We have the letter from the Lieutenant Governor asking for no waivers. Now, I would likely not be here today. My father died of a heart attack after 4 bypasses. My brother, 9 years younger than me, who was overweight, died 4 years ago of a heart attack. As a result, my doctor suggested I have a calcium score test. 0 is perfect, 300 is average. Over 400 says at a 95% chance of significant blockage. As a result of that poor score, they gave me a stress test, which I passed with flying colors. Doctor says there are 2 factors, your genes and your lifestyle. He said I have terrible genes, but my lifestyle is a commitment to physical exercise is right on. We now have a chance to get on the right path for these elementary students by meeting the requirements of the law and providing an opportunity to meet the needs of the whole child. While it's not easy for anybody or any of the districts, anything we do during this COVID, I understand. But because of this, with due respect to the fine people who have asked me to support the waivers, in my good conscience, I cannot to not waive from our mission statement and think of the whole child. If we do that, we'll move toward no longer being number 1 on that very poor statistics, but more importantly, we'll be doing something right for the children in the great state of Tennessee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Eby. Other members?
Madam Chair, this is Sarah. I've got Bob patched in here on my cell phone because he's continued to have technical difficulties, but hopefully you could hear him okay. I just wanted to make sure that we were on record. I think this was mentioned, but in passing during Christy's comments, the state board staff, again, assessing all the things that Bob just went through and some of the things that Nate Morgan mentioned earlier, certainly in terms of our need to ensure the physical activity of our children is paramount, particularly during this pandemic. And so our staff recommendation to the members for the Tom Cronin Act waivers is particularly to waive the component around the licensed educator, but to maintain the requirement around that minimal amount of time, which is 60 minutes in the Tom Cronin Act. So I wanted to make sure, I know members know that, but for the public watching in, that is the staff recommendation.
Thank you for the clarification, Dr. Morrison. Other comments from board members? I believe you all said when we were voting earlier that you would have some questions and comments during this particular period.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Mike Edwards.
Mr. Edwards, please proceed.
Thank you. First of all, again, I'd like to Nate Morrow on his comments earlier, and Bob Eby just in. Both of those statements are full I hold views of fully. Here's where I'm coming from. I think that it is absolutely a necessity to teach math and English, reading mostly. I mean, my goodness. But we have gotten to think that physical education is a throwaway, that it's sort of an indulgence, that it's not important. And therefore, it is sort of an easy thing just to cast away. And I argue it's just the opposite. And for the medical reasons that Mr. Evie pointed out, I think that I do not doubt one bit that superintendents and districts out there are struggling. I don't doubt that Tom Cronin doesn't bring a cost burden, nor do I doubt one minute that it brings a time challenge. The truth is, we can make that argument on any subject that is required, and we've required this. If we don't make those types of considerations, if we make those types of considerations for PE, we ought to make it for chemistry and for band and for whatever we're doing, and we don't. I really don't think that this is a COVID issue. I know it's coming under this waiver system, but I don't think it is. It doesn't exist apart from COVID. That's what I believe. And there might be a time when we need to take a look at this one, but we take a look at every other one out there, every other standard that we have. Look at how much it costs. Look at how much time it requires out of a finite time, day, week, and year, and make judgments, because that's kind of what we're being talked about doing here. Outside of that, it's really not COVID specific. The other thing is, so I'm going to argue against doing away with the 60 minutes. In fact, let me say, 60 minutes really isn't. I'm not impressed with 60 minutes. If we were serious about health, it would be more than that. But the other thing is, I'm not crazy about the idea of getting rid of the phys ed teachers. But if we were to do that, I would want a phys ed professional writing and preparing and supervising classroom teachers' activities for those kids. There are a lot of great teachers out there, but just like we wouldn't put a PE teacher into a chemistry class, I don't think we ought to be putting an elementary 5th grade teacher into a PE. I just don't believe it. So and let me tell you, I am very sympathetic to what COVID has dropped on public education and what it's dropped, the burden it's having on superintendents and LEAs, and I believe that we need to be as understanding on these challenges. I don't think it applies to this one. And if anything, I think at some point in time when this whole thing is passed, we ought to go back and revisit to look at more robust in what we're in the physical health of our kids. Madam Chair, I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Other members?
Can I ask a question? This is Nate Morrow. Can I ask a question? I've already made a statement of the essential nature of social emotional development anxiety, depression, all the, as Mr. Eby talked about, the physical benefits, equally important for the social emotional benefits, especially the emotional benefits, especially in light of all that kids are experiencing with COVID. And you can talk to any counselor about the benefits of physical activity on emotional health, and it's clear. My question is, so if can there be emergency permission? So if there is a district who says, all right, we're going to do this minimum 30 minutes twice a week for physical education for all of our students, we don't have PE teachers, is there a way to create an emergency waiver or a situation in light of that where you don't want to just put anybody in there, but given some districts across our state may not have the candidate pool at this time of year in this situation, is there a way to do that where we are really respecting the specialization and the training of our physical education teachers to do a phenomenal job, but also acknowledging to the districts who may not have access to those people on July 24th, that they can still, because what I don't want to have happen is, okay, they all have to be certified physical education teachers. A district can't find one, and so they throw their hands up and say, well, then we can't do it, and then kids still don't have activity. And so I'm trying to think of a way in this discussion to prioritize a certified physical education teacher. If there's not that candidate pool in a district available, they still have to have the requirement of the time spent. So that's my question as I'm listening to the comments and thinking about it.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to jump in. This is Sarah, and I've looked at my colleagues at the department and on our team, but, we do have the ability, well, we as a state, districts have the ability to request waivers for positions where they can't find a certified teacher. So that happens in the course of regular business very frequently. There's some caveats there and provisions where there are areas that you can't request waivers, and certainly subjects that require an end-of-course test can't be waived in terms of the certification and endorsements. But it is possible outside of this, COVID-related waiver process for districts to submit to the commissioner a waiver requesting if they can't find a certified teacher for PE, for example. So that is something that exists, if that's kind of what you're getting at, Nate.
Yeah, that was my thought. I mean, I really appreciate I don't ever want to make or create something that has a physical education teacher, as Mr. Edwards, I believe, was saying, that that's not a throwaway class, nor is that position or training throwaway training. And it is an extreme time for teachers right now where everything is being asked of them to plan for scenarios that may or may not even happen, in-person, hybrid, remote. So they're, essentially planning for 3 different scenarios to do quality. And so I want to be very cognizant of anything extra. So if the district already has the ability to say, hey, I tried to hire a certified PE teacher, I can't, they have a process already. So that exists. So I think you did answer my question there.
Yeah, it does. It's worth reiterating, like I said, the state board staff recommendation is essentially what you're saying too. It's just, we're recommending that the state board members grant that waiver request under the COVID-related waiver process. As I mentioned before, that, similar waiver ability exists, outside of the COVID process. But to your point, I think particularly right now, with as much as districts are juggling and, what's on their plate, this would be a more expeditious way to waive that requirement for just this academic year for that certified teacher.
So what prevents, oh, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah. I don't have all the facts, but at least something I heard was many of the districts that have asked for waivers already have the PE teachers for 2 classes. So I'm not sure why they're asking for the waivers. I understand what Nate is saying, and I understand that. So maybe if we leave it as is, that if you don't have the teachers, ask for the waivers. But if you have the teachers, again, why would you not be using the teachers to teach the classes? I guess some of the data I have shows of the 30-some-odd districts that are requesting waivers, or the 42 districts, or whatever it is, 10 of them have the all the teachers they need, and about 30% of them have most of the teachers they need.
Ms. Ballard, this is Lillian. So with what Bob just said, because that was going to be my follow-up question to what Nate was saying, specifically, what is the rationale? What is their reasoning for requesting this particular waiver? Are they citing they don't have the teachers? What are you getting from them to help us understand why they're making this request?
I think the waiver applications noted lots of those things, specifically the funding to hire additional teachers. Some of them requested relief based on the fact that they don't have currently properly endorsed physical education teachers. And I will say, going back to what Ms. Morrison was talking about, there already exists in state board rules the ability for districts to request employment standard waivers through the Department of Education, and we maintain that waiver process regularly. But there are some prohibitions, and one of them now is because this law is a statute and actually requires there to be a physical education endorsement for these teachers. It's one of the areas at this time we cannot grant a waiver for. So the state board staff can, their recommendation is to approve the waivers of only the provision of the Tom Cronin Act that requires that specific physical ed endorsement. And if that were granted, just that part of the waiver, it would allow the department to grant and consider and grant employment standard waivers. And what that would mean is if they had a currently licensed teacher who just did not happen to hold that specific physical education endorsement, the department could grant that waiver for 1 year while that teacher, worked on getting that waiver. So I think the state board staff's recommendation, which is a more narrow approval, would allow the very relief that you're talking about, granting those employment standard waivers on a case-by-case basis for those districts specifically requesting them. Because right now, there are a number of employment standard waivers we cannot grant, and the physical education, special education, and waivers for teachers who teach courses that have a end-of-course exam. So that is the problem currently.
So then we would need to be voting on and approving the recommendation from our staff to make that exception to the waiver request so that you can have the authority to do the waiver through the traditional waiver process, if I'm interpreting that correctly.
Yes, Madam Chair, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Other comments or questions from members?
Madam Chair, this is Bob Eby again. If we did do that, I would certainly want us to go on record that this is only a 1-year activity, and further on record that if the schools have the PE teachers, that we need to have those PE teachers teaching the PE classes to meet those requirements, so that we have the trained people providing the skill sets instead of untrained people not being able to provide the skill sets and potentially harming students.
Understood. Thank you. Other questions or comments? The duty-free lunch period, we certainly have received input from a lot of important education partners, one in particular asking that we not make the waiver, but if we did, that we certainly would try to find accommodations for how teachers would have time during the week to have time away from students so they could take care of personal phone calls, have a quiet lunch, whatever the case may be. We certainly understand the rationale for the districts wanting to have the ability to keep students safe and not congregating together in a cafeteria and things of that nature. So I just wanted to mention we certainly have a lot of requests from the field to have that duty-free waiver denied. So I just wanted to say that. Nick, I'm looking at you, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but as an assistant principal, a former teacher, is there anything you want to add to the conversation? And if you don't, I don't want you to feel that pressure.
Sure, absolutely. I would like to speak to duty-free lunch. I know that there were 2 waivers submitted regarding duty-free time as far as planning time and duty-free lunch, and I was glad to hear that at least one of those was denied, because what we are asking teachers to do is totally and utterly change the way that they have done things, you know, for most of their careers. Even if they've incorporated technology, this is a totally new world. So I am glad that to see the planning time is going to be protected. And I can just share from experience. And again, we are a school of about 40 certified staff with several other people who are going to pitch in and help. And we have been able to work together through some give and take and just some team mentality to make sure that our academic teachers will still receive duty-free lunch every single day. And again, there are other responsibilities that they're going to have to pick up as a trade-off of that. But we feel like that was something very important. I understand that some of our small rural schools may not have that luxury. When you only have 1 or 2 teachers per grade, it may be very, very difficult. But I would just encourage administration and teacher teams to really sit down and look and see how is it possible that we protect as much of that time as possible. And I understand we're not going to be able to fit. Normally, every day we have 200 to 215 kids in our cafeteria. That's impossible to do. But I would just encourage, there are ways to look at least, you know, if you're looking at every other day or some way to be able to cover, you know, as an administrator, I would do it myself. I would be there to try to give some flexibility, but I know each situation is different. But I would hope that would be something that could be accomplished at least part of the week.
Thank you for that. Other questions, comments?
I just want to add to what Nick said. I think that in working in a school, it's team mentality is paramount. Everybody pitching in is paramount. For sure, that's what allows creativity to problem solve through brand new situations and navigate in ways that we never have had to. But I think, again, if you look at the teaching body, there's the most burden has been put on our teachers across the state, whether it's remote, whether it's in person. You know, that's a more vulnerable population to start with. For COVID effects. And so I think anything that can be done to give them the space, physically, emotionally, mentally, for preparation, for just an exhale, I just want that to be noted. And again, I think it's really important to that idea of protecting the planning time as well, just in the sense that they need that. And then finally, just I think like Nick's school, places, and like we were talking yesterday in the workshop, places that schools can share best practices, where teachers, unions, and different personnel can share across district lines and saying, hey, what are you guys doing to make this work? How are you doing this to give teachers the emotional and the physical space and break and planning time is just going to be absolutely important, because we keep passing it. You know, we look at this in chunks, right? We looked at it as the spring. We looked at this, okay, we're going into fall. We don't know when this ends. And so there's the level of sustainability to do education and to rethink some of the things of education, which I'm excited about that task force that Nathan spoke about yesterday, because we don't know the end date. So we have to operate in a sustainable fashion going forward, because the risk of not doing that well is that we have, you know, a generational problem that is missing really important milestones as students.
Thank you for adding that additional commentary. Well taken. Thank you, Nate. Now, with this discussion, assuming there's no additional comments.
Madam Chair, would like to echo what my colleagues have shared here, both in terms of the physical education component and the protected lunch period. You know, COVID-19 has just placed a lot of stress on different professions, and I think we've all heard too about the impact that it's having on our kids. And I just resonates with me what Bob has said earlier about just the positive impact of physical activity. And then I think on the part of our duty-free lunch, I'm not in the classroom, but I suspect that our teachers and others need that time just away. And I am sympathetic to what I'm sure these individuals that have come up with the rationale for the waiver request, but I just feel strongly that we've got to be very prudent in terms of looking out for both our teachers and for the students.
Thank you for that, Mr. Ferguson. Others? So we've had a lot of discussion, and I think we need to have clarity with regard to what we are approving and not approving. So it's my understanding that what we're saying is with the Tom Cronin Physical Education Act, we are not issuing or not intending to have a full approval of that. We are considering a revision to that based on the recommendation from State Board of Education staff. Sarah, do you want to clarify what we're stating there? And I don't know that we need to individually approve every one of those, but we need to think about how we would approve what's been put before us or not approve it in its entirety the way that it's been presented, because we are taking exception to elements of what's been approved.
Certainly. The State Board staff recommendation is that we concur with all of the waiver recommendations from the Department of Education, with the exception of the Tom Cronin Act. And in that case, the State Board staff recommends approval of the waivers with respect to the provision around a licensed PE educator, but not with respect to the 2 30-minute physical activity periods each week as required by law. So I think you would want to have someone restate that in a motion, but that is the carve out in terms of the State Board staff recommendation for this item.
Okay, and so...
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Mr. James.
Yes. So probably the easiest way to do it would simply be for a member to make a motion that to accept the recommendation of the State Board of Education staff with regards to this item. That would take care of it all. Unless you have members that want individual votes or to pull something out, that takes care of it in terms of putting the body in the correct posture.
I'm sure this is Bob Eby. I want to make sure I understand. So the recommendation, I think, is that we would still require the 2 30 minutes, but we would not require it be done by a certified PE teacher for this year. Is that what the recommendation is?
That's correct, Bob.
So I want to make sure, because we've had some discussion about the duty-free lunch. And I want to make sure that if there's anything there, anybody want to make any other comments before we go into a vote, because what we'll need is to conclude our discussion, and then we'll go into a motion to approve the recommendations of the State Board of Education staff. That's what we would be voting on based on what you have in your cover sheet and what Sarah has just shared with us. So without any other discussion or any other amendments, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the recommendation of the State Board of Education with regard to item 4M, COVID-19 unique waivers. Is there a motion to approve?
This is Bob Eby. I'll move to approve.
Mr. Eby provides the motion. Is there a second?
This is Mike Edwards. I second.
Mr. Edwards provides the second. Any further discussion? Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins?
Mr. Cobbin. Mr. Darnell.
Aye.
Mr. Eby.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson.
Aye.
Mr. Jensen.
Aye.
Ms. Kim.
Aye.
Mr. Morrow.
Aye.
Madam Chairman.
Aye.
Madam Chair, I count 8 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you so much, Ms. Ballard. Great work capturing all these various unique waivers, and we appreciate your time explaining all of that to us today.
Thank
Tough
you.
decisions and a lot of hard work happening out in the field. So thank you all. Thanks for the robust discussion as well. Moving into item 5, Charter School Appeals. Item A, Compass Community Schools Midtown Amendment Appeal. Dr. Sarah Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item presents to you the amendment appeal for Compass Midtown Charter School. Compass petitioned Shelby County Schools to amend its charter agreement with Shelby County to reduce its grade span from 7 through 12th grades to 9 through 12th grades. Shelby County Schools denied this petition, and Compass appealed this decision to the State Board. The State Board staff collected additional information, we held a public hearing, and we collected public comment in our efforts to compile full record on this appeal. All background material was provided to board members prior to this meeting, as well as my recommendation. As you know, my recommendation is to uphold the denial of this appeal for several reasons. First, Shelby County Schools, in the absence of a state-approved application and rubric, created and communicated and followed a transparent application and evaluation process. They also were able to demonstrate the need for high-quality seats in this area of Shelby County through the Midtown community. Therefore, my recommendation is to uphold this decision of Shelby County to deny the amendment. And however, as you read through the Executive Director's report, you will note a couple things that I think are worth noting before turning it over for any questions. First, after this meeting, moving forward, there will be a state application process and a timeline for amendment requests such as this. I've also encouraged in my report for Shelby County, while commendable to have a clear policy on amendments, to revisit this particular policy to allow for some additional discretion if and when needed. I've also encouraged Compass to revisit and expand their outreach plan. It does seem that there is a need in this area of town that this school could help to meet, and would encourage them to continue their outreach efforts. Finally, charter school authorizing is a partnership, as we know, having been in the business ourselves at the State Board. And both the authorizer and the operator should and want to see the school be successful and should work together to that end. So for these reasons and those further included in my report, I'm recommending that you uphold Shelby County's decision in this appeal, but I'll stop there and take any questions. We did talk about this pretty extensively yesterday, but if there's any final comments or questions, I'm happy to take them now.
Questions or comments, Dr. Morrison? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve item 5A?
Chairman, quickly, this is Angie Sanders. There is a statement from Shelby County Schools that they submitted that they would like to have read into the record, and with your permission, I would be willing to read that.
Is there any objection from any of the board members? Please proceed, Ms. Sanders.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a letter from the Shelby County Board of Education Assistant Superintendent of Charter Schools, Brittany Monda. Dear members of the Tennessee State Board of Education, Shelby County Schools appreciated the opportunity to share the Shelby County amendment process with the State Board Office during the appeal hearings at the start of July. We value the partnership the SDS Office of Charter Schools has with the state charter school staff and look forward to continuing that partnership. Shelby County Schools believes in transparent standards for our charter schools based on Tennessee Quality Authorizing Standards and NACSA standards. As an authorizer, we want to ensure these fair practices are implemented to ensure strong outcomes for our school communities. Charter schools make a promise to communities through their academic, operations, and financial plans. Our job is to ensure the school is aligning to those promises. In the case of Compass Midtown, the school made a promise to the community and families for which they serve to enroll students in grades 7 through 12 at the Midtown campus. With Compass Midtown just completing their first school year, the startup process should include reflection and adjustment to meet the charter agreements and the needs of your families. It is not to eliminate grade levels without a plan of action. The success of the charter schools in Shelby County portfolio is success in Shelby County. No matter our path forward, we want that success. Our office strives to model the integrity of the commitment voiced to our families, parents, and most importantly, our children. While we cannot control some of the inconsistencies that may occur within the homes of our students, we still have the duty to implement and maintain fair and equitable practices as the charter authorizer. We look forward to our continued partnership with the Compass Community Schools team, the State Board office, and the State Board of Education. We appreciate your time today and respectfully request the State Board uphold the office's decision to deny the amendment request for Compass Midtown in Shelby County. That's it, Chairman. I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Chair, this is Bob Eby.
Yes, Mr. Eby.
Just a comment. These things are always tough to do and to evaluate, but I think Dr. Morrison and Tess and Angie and the team that do that, it always amazes me how thorough they are in their assessments. And then usually I'll have a different idea or something like that, but after listening to what they say, you know, I'm convinced that their recommendations are spot on. So I just wanted to say how much I appreciate all that they're doing. I think they're doing an outstanding job on these appeals.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for those excellent comments. I certainly echo them. They're very thorough and deliberative, and they make it crystal clear whenever I have discussions about them on their decisions. And just like you said, you can.
About Brittany Monda on the state board.
What was that? I heard, not sure if somebody wanted to speak, but at any rate, let's see, do we have a motion to approve?
This is for approval.
Mr. Eby makes a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Ms. Gordon Ferguson, I'll second that motion.
Mr. Ferguson provides a second. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins. Mr. Darnell.
Aye.
Mr. Eby.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson.
Aye.
Mr. Jensen.
Aye.
Ms. Kim.
Aye.
Mr. Morrow.
Aye.
Chairman Hartgrove.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 8 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you very much. Great work. Moving into teacher licensure actions, Ms. Brittany Kendrick, I do understand that in the discussion we will have a request from Mr. Nick Darnell, but I'll turn it over to Brittany, and then we'll turn it over to Nick Darnell.
Good morning again, Madam Chair, members. Again, I'm Brittany Kendrick, the Assistant General Counsel for State Board. I, along with my colleague Todd Madison, the staff attorney for the State Board, are presenting the staff recommendations for the educator licensure discipline. We are happy to take any questions that you all may have or facilitate any discussion on the recommendations.
Mr. Darnell?
Madam Chair, I would ask that case E, the letter E, be pulled for separate consideration.
You repeat the letter, I'm sorry, because I hear some background noise. I think there's somebody without, their phone's not on mute. So could you repeat the letter?
Letter E.
E as in elephant.
Yes, correct.
Okay. You're asking us to pull it for additional research?
No, just to consider it separately.
To vote on it separately?
Correct.
Okay. Understood. Are there any other requests, questions, or comments? Is there a motion to approve all except item E, so that would be A, B, C, D, F, G, H. Is there a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, this is Mike Edwards. I move.
Mr. Edwards provides the motion. Is there a second?
This is Nick Darnell. I'll second.
Mr. Darnell provides the second. Any other discussion? Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins. Mr. Darnell.
Aye.
Mr. Eby. Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson.
Aye.
Mr. Jensen.
Aye.
Ms. Kim.
Aye.
Mr. Morrow.
Aye.
Chairman Hartgrove.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 7 ayes.
The ayes have it and the motion is approved. Now, Mr. Darnell, you want to share some information with us regarding item E?
Yes, Madam Chair. Really on this one, I want to start off by saying, first of all, this is a tough job that we have to determine what is the right decision to make on these cases. These are tough, and Brittany and her team have a hard job as they try to make these recommendations to present to us. So I really would like us to have a discussion on, this case in particular, because I think consistency is key. We all agree in that. As we look back at prior cases, we try to be consistent if at all possible. And so when I look at this case and we look at the board action consistency, we really haven't had one before because there is no case to really look at that we have considered recently. So first to say, we have a 4th grade teacher who has made some inappropriate comments. By no means do I support anything that she said to the students or the comments that were made in the hallway. But I would like us to have a conversation about the idea of what is the local board's, the local board's job in dealing with teachers who do make these comments. These comments were not sexual in nature. They were not threatening in nature. They were very inappropriate, for sure. And so when we look at that, what is the local board's role in this? What is our state board role in this? We have a very limited staff, and their workload is immense. And so I guess my concern with this case is if we take more cases like this, will our staff be overwhelmed? Do we then begin to do the job of what the locals should also be doing? When I look in comparison, we had case F with, I believe that was Mr. Matthews, with the "I'm Not the Father" video, which was highly inappropriate, sexual in nature. And we also had case H, where we had a teacher have 2 students leave her classroom to take something to another school, which could have caused a wreck. It was a very dangerous situation. So when I look at those 2 versus this one, I see a difference. And so those are my thoughts. Again, totally my thoughts. And so I just wanted to see what the thought of the rest of the members would be.
And I'll jump in because in conversations in the past when we've talked about the responsibility of the LEA, the principal, typically the disciplinary process would occur in the school itself, where the principal would be providing guidance to a teacher who may have a repeated behavior of saying inappropriate things, in particular similarly to this case where the recommendation is for a formal reprimand. So in the past, we've indicated that this simply wouldn't come to us unless there was action on the part of the LEA to deal with and discipline the teacher locally. So Brittany, Todd, I would certainly ask for you to clarify in your discussion with the leadership in the district if there was action on their part, because I'm trying to remember I'd have to pull up my computer behind me to bring up all the details of this one. But I do remember that there were other challenges that they were having with her, and you would think that they had dealt with that. So I'll stop and get your reaction to that in line with and in keeping with what Mr. Darnell is asking.
Yeah, so she was suspended for 4 days surrounding these circumstances.
That I understand. I'm talking about a pattern of behavior previously where this is a repeated offense. She keeps doing this and she's not taking the proper actions to improve her own performance in this regard, and her language and what she says in front of others. So I'm talking about a pattern, not this particular case. She was suspended for 4 days. Do we have any other information that would support that she's deserving of this particular formal reprimand?
Well, she does have a pattern, as you said, dealing with administration and faculty, dealing with her communication related to students is kind of limited to this matter. We definitely considered whether or not this is sort of a slippery slope, and realized that the circumstances kind of toe that line, and that's an analysis that we perform in each case that we look at. So coming out of our discussions, we just felt it'd be proper to offer this recommendation to the board and get y'all's thoughts on whether you agree or whether you think leniency is the best course.
And certainly another board member can weigh in, other board members can weigh in. By reporting it, it says to us, it should say to us, that there is an expectation that we would take some form of action because the districts understand or certainly have been instructed on their responsibility related to this subject matter, and sending it to us certainly says to me that we are supposed to we should be taking some form of action. And that would be because they've done their due diligence, that they've done what they could to address the challenges with this teacher in particular with this type of behavior. So that's just my 2 cents worth. We can all individually vote on this one, but I do want to know if there are any other comments from other board members.
Madam Chair, this is Brittany, if I may, just to address some of Nick's additional concerns as well. I know,
Yes.
like Nick mentioned, that there's a concern about the slippery slope of the board's position versus the local board position, and if the board does decide to take action against this particular educator, will that increase the number of reports similar to this coming to us from the districts? And we actually see these type of reports a lot from the school districts. But in our case review process, we weigh the various different circumstances to determine whether or not to bring it before you all as a recommendation or not. So I don't know that if you all were to vote to approve this, it will necessarily increase the reports that we're already getting. I don't know that will happen. But if that's a concern, I don't know that it should be there, because I think we are getting those reports on a regular basis already. I think what Todd said, just because of the nature of the ongoing position, is what we thought in this particular case it was warranted at least a reprimand. But obviously, Nick or any other board members, if you all feel like maybe this isn't something that is warranted, you all can obviously make a recommendation or a motion to not take action against this educator or keep it as standing.
And I guess one of my, I've shared most of my concerns, but in this case, we've got, there were, I believe, 3 different comments. Is that correct?
I think so, yes.
Okay. And so, again, there were several comments. She made very bad decisions when she said this. No one is arguing that. But I guess my concern is, if we do 3, and then if it were to go to 2, and then to 1, if at that point then we're reprimanding multiple teachers for really bad decisions, which may or may not be deserved. That's a big concern for me. Is where do we put the line?
So Nick, do you have a recommendation that we not accept the recommendation of the state board staff with regard to?
That would be my recommendation, is that we do not accept the recommendation for this case.
Okay, so then what we would need to do is take a vote on your recommendation, and if your recommendation is accepted, then this would be pulled and there would be no disciplinary action against this educator. So we have, would you say that in the form of a motion, and we'll ask for a second?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that we do not accept the recommendation of the state board staff on this pending case, case E.
Is there a second?
Madam Chair, this is Mike Edwards, I second.
Mr. Edwards provides a second. Discussion or comments from other members? Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins. Mr. Darnell.
Aye.
Mr. Eby. Mr. Eby. Mr. Edwards.
No. There you go.
Nay.
Nay on Mr. Eby. Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson. Mr.
Nay.
Ferguson. Nay. Mr. Jensen.
No.
Ms. Kim.
No.
Mr. Morrow. Mr. Morrow.
No.
Madam Chairman.
No.
Madam Chairman, you have 6 nays.
The motion is denied, which means we accept, Nathan, keep me straight, it means we accept the recommendation, but now we need to vote on item 6E to approve it, because we did not approve it in the first go-round. So is there a
Madam
motion?
Chairman, that's correct.
Yes.
The motion that just took place was to say no to any action at all. So now the question before the body is, how shall item E be disposed of? And members are free to make recommendations to send it back to be changed, which is different than taking no action, or they're free to recommend to uphold the staff's recommendation.
Are there any other recommendations? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the recommendation of the State Board of Education staff regarding item 6E, formal reprimand?
This is Mike Edwards, I'll make the motion.
Mr. Edwards provides the motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Bob Eby seconds.
I heard 2 names, but Mr. Eby, I heard you first. Mr. Eby provides the second. Any further discussion? Mr. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cobbins. Mr. Darnell.
No.
Mr. Eby.
Yes.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson.
Aye.
Mr. Jensen.
Aye.
Ms. Kim.
Aye.
Mr. Morrow.
Aye.
Karen Hartgrove.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 7 ayes.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you for your great work. Appreciate the presentations today, and we'll move on to a presentation from Commissioner Schwinn. I know our time is short, but she has an important update for us on school opening. Commissioner Schwinn, I turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman, and it's nice to see everyone today. I'm going to keep my remarks relatively brief because I certainly want to make sure that there's time for questions I also want to thank, I know Megan presented yesterday on my behalf and I think did a great job talking about CLPs in our process internally. As a brief update for the board, as of this morning, we have officially approved a number of CLPs that are going out to districts. I want to say a special shout out to Clinton City, who was our first approval in the state. And I think one of the things that we're seeing is that districts are really coming together as teams and frankly as regions, which is I think an extra special part of this, to come up with creative solutions about how to support all of their students, whether they are choosing to be in school remote or in person. So special shout out to that particular district as the first in the state. In terms of school reopening, we had expected to have a press conference yesterday afternoon or this morning to talk a little bit more about some of the big things that are happening from the state perspective. That is now going to happen on Tuesday because the CDC released guidance late last night, essentially overnight. And we want to make sure that anything we're putting out to our schools and districts, that the Department of Health, Department of Education here in Tennessee is completely aligned with any other health guidance that's coming out. So we're going to spend the weekend just double, triple checking to make sure that everything is aligned. We know that our districts really rely on the Department of Health for that critical health guidance in partnership with the Department of Education about then what to do with that for implementing strong practices in a variety of different formats. What we're seeing at the federal level, though, is a continued kind of, there wasn't a lot of new information, frankly. I think there was some different packaging and then some top line pieces of information. What's nice is that they're starting to bridge the CDC guidance with the AAP guidance. Some of those were in a little bit of conflict with one another. And so it was trying to figure out which one is the right one to use. I think now we're seeing a more cohesive approach into how we're thinking about reopening schools, and that's, I know from at least the department's perspective, much appreciated, and I certainly would expect that from our school districts, they feel the same. A couple of things that are going to be released, we'll have some of the earlier versions of that posted on our website over the weekend, but a decision-making framework that is specific to K-12 that is supposed to and intended to help districts identify when you have a positive case in your classroom versus a hallway versus a school building. How do you make those very, very tough decisions about what level of closure to have in those spaces? We'll be walking through a lot of that documentation with districts in the coming week just to make sure that the recommendations coming from the state are very clear. Again, those are going to be very specific local decisions, especially as we think about what spread looks like. We know in one zip code, a lot of that spread might be contained into a nursing home or a prison or jail facility, and others it is much more within communities. It might be from a certain event. And so we want to make sure that folks are able to work with the data that is very local to make those decisions, so that there is a framework and a guidance document that has clear thresholds of what we would strongly recommend, and then frankly when you have to close from a health and safety perspective. So that's one of the things that will be coming out. Again, it is duplicative of some of the toolkits and other resources we've put out. What we're doing now is having very parent-friendly facing resources. We want to make sure that families understand kind of what is the information, what they can expect, and how decisions are made. You'll see a lot of that on Tuesday. The second thing that I want to just kind of highlight outside of the CLPs and the instructional practices is around this idea of child well-being and how we're thinking about that. I appreciate some of the earlier comments in this meeting that reference back to, I think, certainly the strategic plan from the department and Best for All, and having that whole child be our number two or the second priority. But it's also, I think, at this point statewide, it's been really encouraging to just see how many people are taking this as one of the primary focuses of our education system. I think we all know, and our districts know, our schools know, our teachers know, that child well-being has and always will be a critical and fundamental foundational part of a child's education, but now more than ever, it is so important. And as we think about some of the things going into next year, I want to highlight for the board a particular challenge that I am seeing for our districts, and want to just make sure that I'm holding myself accountable and our department accountable to following up with you about how we are supporting this challenge. And that is, if you are a district who is running an in-person option as well as a remote option, you are essentially running two different schools or two different districts at the same time. There's a capacity and the logistical challenge with that. But on top of that, when we think about child well-being and we think about how many of our families rely on our schools for nutrition and healthcare, for counseling, for special education services, and on and on and on. We do have a responsibility as a state to figure out how do we wrap our arms around those families and ensure they have the continuity of services. And that's not something that's going to be easy to do. So I've been very encouraged by the work on the Child Wellbeing Task Force. That report came out yesterday. The one-pager came with that. If you don't want to read what is like a 50-plus page document with lots and lots of really great feedback that went into it. But I do think that it is worthy of ongoing conversation, certainly reporting and discussion, especially as we move into the fall. We do expect, and I want to be very clear, we do expect every district will have some period of closure just by nature of having positive cases. We know that those oftentimes won't necessarily come through students just by testing in young children, but when we think about educators, when we think about some of our older students, we need to make sure that we are really, really prepared for that. And when we shut a school building down for a 2-week period of time, if we shut a classroom down for a 2-week period of time, we still have that same responsibility to provide those services. So we're not just saying how do we toggle to instruction right away, but it's also how do we ensure that we have that action plan related to all of the operational and logistical needs that go into running a school and providing those services. And so wanted to highlight that you'll hear a lot about that on Tuesday as well. Lisa Piercy, Commissioner Piercy, will be talking about the healthcare pediatrician perspective about kind of the what is safe, how do we know it's safe, what are all the things that need to happen to ensure that we keep people safe, and frankly, what are all the things and accommodations that need to be made for people who are not able to be physically in a building and the expectations around that. And then I will talk after her and talk a little bit about this is how we can do that and share all the supports and resources we're putting into place. And the last thing that I'll say is just a preview is that we know that one of the biggest concerns right now is really on that equipment, some of the funding related to that. We're very encouraged yesterday in speaking to some folks in Congress around the resources that will come, but I also want to be very frank, and I think I was maybe a little too frank in my comments, but that we can't wait for federal assistance that may or may not come weeks from now, and then there's all the policies, there's a way to get that out, and it takes time from the moment that they pass legislation to the point where dollars get to schools and classrooms. And so I've been very encouraged by the amount of support that I have felt, and I think that we as a state feel from our elected officials around trying to get the resources necessary. I think we'll be able to talk in much greater detail about that next week. But there's lots of planning in place and implementation going on to make sure that those can get to schools as soon as possible. We've been working on that for quite a while now. I just want to reinforce and reassure that when we think about health and safety, we, number one, strongly believe that districts need to make the best decisions for their local communities. And I think we all know that across the state, everyone every district is very different. I say they're all kind of the unique snowflakes. And so we want to make sure that they can make those local decisions. But we also want to make sure that we are taking responsibility and shared responsibility to try to support providing them with the resources necessary, regardless of which decisions they make. And that's something that I am very, very grateful for, both as a parent of children in public schools here in the state, but certainly also when I think about my colleagues in other states and some of the battles they're fighting. Those are not the battles that we're fighting here in Tennessee. And it's more about figuring out the logistics of how to get things done and not whether or not education is a worthy enough thing to invest in. And that is something that continues to be very special. And I know that stems certainly from our elected officials and public officials, but I also just want to reiterate that I have felt that from this board as well, that it is always a student's first perspective. And part of being students first is also absolutely considering the needs of the staff who support those students every day. So those are my big framing comments, but happy to take any questions that you have and talk at whatever topics are front of mind for you all today, but very appreciative of your ongoing support for our schools. This is a really tough time for everybody, and it is a very, very complex thing to manage. And so my deepest appreciation continues to go out to those who are in the school communities, and I can't wait to start getting into schools next week and starting to see and hear a little bit more about the ways that we can continue to support them.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will, I'm hearing some echo for some strange reason, but want to make sure that our board members have an opportunity to ask questions or make comments. Does anyone have any for the Commissioner? It's hard to believe they're speechless, but they might be hungry at this point in time. And sorry to keep you waiting, but you could tell there was a lot of deep discussion about just about every topic, in particular the latter ones, especially with the specific additional unique waivers. I definitely appreciate you taking the time to be here, and I certainly want to thank you and your team for the hard work that you all are putting in behind the scenes, the amount of time, the collaboration with the districts, and giving them all the tools that they need to help them in making these opening decisions. I know that we had a great presentation yesterday from Megan McElroy. She did an excellent job. Pleased with the work that's happening in the field with the various core offices and giving the support that the districts need, and probably they could use a lot more resources to help them in the long run. But thank you all for that so much, and thank you for appearing before Congress. Did you get any indication that there would be bipartisan support and that something would move faster rather than at a snail's pace? Could you get any feel for that while you were there?
I did. I definitely got a feeling. I think it was interesting to see they had a new proposal that had come out just that morning. So right now there are 4 major proposals that are being floated around between the Senate and the House. It looks like each party in each chamber kind of has their own version. I do feel incredibly optimistic that there will be more funding. I think it's a matter of whether it's going to be in the $70 billion range. The highest that I saw was kind of in the $150 to $200 billion range. That is a big deal for Tennessee. To give a sense, $70 billion, there's a whole other conversation about what some carve-outs might be for that. But we think that at minimum, if that package got through, it would be close to $1.2 billion for our schools here in Tennessee. And that is something that I think when we talk about deferred maintenance in our facilities and some of the needs around that, when we think about just basic supplies that are needed, nurses for next year, even though we have a shortage of those, counselors, et cetera, it is a truly important bill that we would like to see passed. I think that the challenge that I certainly heard both in the testimony and then the conversations before and after really had to do with whether or not everyone could come together in DC and be able to say at the end of the day, we've got to get something to schools. And those were my public comments. It was, schools are opening. We just don't have time to wait for you. Like we need it now. There is urgency. And I think Charlie is going to send you all both the written testimony and the verbal testimony, but very specific about what we can use the funds for. I'm optimistic they're coming. I don't think we're going to see them for several weeks at the earliest, frankly.
Thank you for that. Did you get any sense that broadband would be a part of that funding?
Yeah, I think what's nice to see is that regardless of kind of the political affiliation, everyone seems to understand that that is a critically important topic, and it is something that we need to invest in. I think the timeline on that is going to be challenging for the school year, so we're going to try to get the for families as a short-term solution. So our hope is that any strings that are tied to the federal dollars allow us to provide that short-term relief and then also to invest in some of those bigger topic areas like broadband, but it came up in every conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions or comments from anyone else? I have no doubt that he's trying to talk. But he's having technical difficulties. I don't know if you heard that. Well, I tell you, the hour is already late, and I'm thankful that you've been here with us today to share that update. We certainly have had some great presentations today and a lot of hard work happening in the department along with our staff. We are greatly appreciative of the partnership and the relationship that we have with you all. And I do want to thank each of those presenters for everything that they're doing to make sure that we are informed and that we're making the best possible decisions that we have control over. That's within our area of responsibility. The hour is late. There's no question about that. So I do want to find out any other comments or remarks from any board members before we adjourn.
Madam Chair, I don't want Penny to leave without, or Commissioner, I'm sorry, to not hear from me anyway, that really do appreciate it. This is a tough time in life, in public education everywhere in the Western Hemisphere, globally, but in Tennessee certainly. And from my chair, I think you're doing a very, very good job, a hard job, so thanks.
thank you for sharing those comments for the
Thank you.
commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. That means a lot to me and our team. So thank you very much.
Other comments? Before we adjourn, I just want to remind everyone that our next quarterly meeting is November the 6th. We are expected to be in Nashville, in Memphis, at the University of Memphis. However, similarly to all the other meetings up to this point since COVID-19, we're taking it one day at a time, and we'll certainly be working closely with the University of Memphis to make a determination if it will be possible from a health perspective to actually be there in Memphis. We do have a special call meeting coming up on August the 17th. I believe it's at 10 a.m., but you all have received your notification of that and in a calendar invitation. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.